Bases dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here. It is a Monday. It's an overreaction Monday. First overreaction Monday 2022. First Monday of the MLS regular season. A lot of games to talk about around MLS. We're going to bounce around the world as well. Talk penalty shootouts in Gummy Bear Cups. We're going to talk about golazos in Argentina. We're going to talk about ridiculousness in Brazil because they're full of it. And we're going to talk about plenty of other things throughout the morning. We're going to talk about a high school trip we made down to Vidalia, which was a lot of fun to see Toombs County and Vidalia on Friday. We can talk about Atlanta United 2 and South Georgia Tormenta, who have a player announcement coming up in an hour, as they have tweeted this morning. We'll talk about that from Saturday. We'll talk a lot about Atlanta United and Sporting Kansas City. Obviously, we'll bounce around MLS too. Carlos Vela with a hat trick. Michael Estrada, Chocolatin, with 2 goals for DC United. Cincinnati looked terrible. DC and Charlotte didn't really look good, either one of them. Seattle looked a little hungover with the CCL hangover. So did NYC. Both lost. Plenty of things to jump around to, and we will do that this morning. Jarrett Smith is clinging to life. Is that fair to say, Jarrett?
Man, it certainly feels like it. I don't know, man. I don't know.
What's wrong?
Having a kid?
That's what it is? I thought you were sick or something.
Well, no, I am, but because having a kid contributes to this.
Directly in.
It's like living with a petri dish.
Thank you for the yes. Thank you. Just checking. Didn't know if she got you sick this time or what was going on.
I don't know if she did or not. I'm going to hold her responsible, but it might not be her fault.
Kind of harsh, Jared. You're blaming your kid now. I was trying to give you an out on that, and you just doubled down. John helped you double down, actually.
Yes, he did.
That's
fine. I still, you know what? I lived long enough to watch the game yesterday and watch games this weekend, so I was happy.
Well, that's good. Ivy's going to kill both of you guys at some point.
I know she will. She'll give the rear naked choke that she learned from her father. And
I don't think she learned it from him. I think she taught it to him is what happened. She knew that coming from the jump. Yeah. All right, we'll get into these games, but first off, thank you to everybody down in Vidalia for having us on Friday night. It was a lot of fun to get outside the metro, see some high school soccer. Good games, too. Really good goals from Toombs County in the boys' game. They kind of dominated that one. Girls' game was really competitive. Vidalia got the win there. A lot of back and forth action. A lot of fun to be able to see Atlanta United 2 up close on Saturday and see South Georgia Tormenta, even though half the team was trialists and unknown trialists as well. So that was always fun to do, but got to dig into that a little bit, see Nick Firmino, who's on loan with the Twos or on trial with the Twos. We'll see if he gets a deal. Showed enough that I think he probably will. Grant Howard looked really good out of the Atlanta United Academy. And look, the Academy is probably the biggest story this weekend, John, with George Campbell getting a start. Tyler Wolff should have had 2 secondary assists. I'll have to talk to Opta about that one.
Yep.
And Caleb Wiley getting his first MLS goal in his first MLS appearance.
Yeah, and it was fun to see, knowing the path that we have seen these 3 young men on, and see it come to just to fruition, I guess, for lack of a better word, just to see it on display there in front of more than 67,000 for Atlanta United. George Campbell, we've seen him last couple of years working his way from Atlanta United 2 up to the first team. Once again, his growth continues. Not intimidated by his surroundings at all. Felt right at home there on the back line, right next to Miles Robinson. Then you look at what we've seen from Tyler Wolff. We saw it in the preseason, and the relationship that he's had on the left-hand side with Andrew Gutman. And you saw what Tyler Wolff has been able to get with his game. And then Caleb Wiley, obviously, in there for, I think, about 14 minutes before he gets the goal that made it 3-1. Fantastic moment for a local kid who comes through the academy. And if you haven't had the chance to see it, go on Atlanta United's Twitter, and Gonzalo Pineda, in his post-match talk with the team, understands the importance of that first goal. And he had Captain Brad Gazan present the game ball to Caleb Wiley, and Caleb got to say some quick things. But fantastic moment for Caleb, and great in the team environment as well. And it was great to see those three perform on such a grand stage yesterday.
Jarrett, what else stood out to you about yesterday?
Honestly, Dom Dwyer.
Yeah.
Like Dom Dwyer coming in and playing 70-plus minutes in a situation that he probably wasn't expecting. Like, you're expecting him to come in and kind of close things out. He came in and busted his ass for 70 minutes, did a lot of work off the ball, took some hard fouls in key moments of buildup. One in particular sticks out in my head where he takes a good touch and puts his body in the way the defender that he knows is closing him down, takes a hard foul, but basically kills off any chance for Sporting Kansas City to build a counter press. And he just did a lot of work. Yeah, he gets a goal. I wonder if 3 years ago, if he has 2 goals because of the last ball that he pushes just wide, that Lennon puts the cross just a step in front of him. I wonder if a couple of years ago, if he has the burst to get to it and turn it in. But could have had 2 goals and worked his tail off. I was just insanely impressed with him because that's not the situation you expect him to be in for this team, but he's able to go out there and get the job done. So impressive.
Yeah, little nitpicky about could have had a second. He could have. I thought Melia closed it down pretty well too. So he tried to place it and wasn't able to hit that under that pressure. The first goal made up for any misses that he would have had. That's a really difficult goal that Dom Dwyer pulls out of his bag. The move on Fontes to create the space and then the finish, just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And we'll go back to both of those first 2 goals. A lot of people, I've had multiple texts of people this morning asking if there's an update on Luisa Araujo. There's not going to be one anytime soon, y'all. We know how these things go. It's a hamstring. That's what Pineda said afterwards. That's what it looked like live. That's not something you're going to be able to diagnose after a match, and you're not diagnosing it this morning either. It's something that's going to take a little bit of time. Hopefully it is something that, and I talked to Mike Conti about this off air during the full-time report, with 3 games and then an international break, hopefully it's a minor enough hamstring injury that you're going to be able to maybe miss those 3 and then have the break and then come back. And if that's what this hamstring is, if it's a 3-game injury, that's not too bad. That is manageable. Now, you got to get some other people back. Marcelina Moreno making his first appearance, that's a huge help. You would, I think, reasonably expect more from him next week. He played about 15 minutes. He looked very tired by the end of the 15. He's only had 1 day of training with the team in terms of soccer training. He's been doing physical work on the side throughout the preseason, but his match fitness isn't where you want. Can he get you to 45 in Colorado? Possibly. Maybe it's only 30. Maybe he's a second half sub there. Maybe he can start the next one. If he can get to 45, maybe you start with 5 subs. You have a little bit more leeway with that. But that's just the reality of the beginning of the season. We saw a hamstring for Kansas City as well with Ari Rosell, and that's a huge issue for them because you don't have a lot of players who can fill that role. Atlanta United showed that they've got players who can fill roles. And this is something that was brought up on the full-time report by multiple people. I think we get really, you know how I feel about formations and overstating the importance of formations that I think a lot of people do. It doesn't define the style. It's just how you start the game. Positions are starting to become that in the modern game. And if you want to learn more about this, study some of the things that Marcelo Bielsa has had to say about it. And this isn't about a Bielsa system. It's important to his system, obviously, but it's important to Pep Guardiola's system. It's important to Gonzalo Pineda's system and philosophy and the way they want to play. Guys have to be able to play multiple positions. Everybody. And look, for a center back, are you going to ask them to play forward? No. But are you ask them to play on the left or the right? Yeah. Are you going to ask them possibly to play on the outside? Yeah, maybe. You going to ask them to play as a holding midfielder? Yeah, maybe. That's the rotation that they can play. A fullback. Are you going to ask them to play maybe as a center back? We've seen Mikey Ambrose have to do that in preseason. We've seen that happen over the years with different players. Yes, you might have to. Atlanta United's fullbacks might have to do that from time to time in a game late when you don't have subs and things happen. Are you going to ask them to play on the wing? Yes, as we saw yesterday, where you had Caleb Wiley and Brooks Lennon playing as wingers. Central midfielders, can they play the 6, the 8, the 10? You want guys who can do that. A Marcelo showed that he can do that. Osvaldo Alonso does that. He can bounce up and play high in the formation. He can sit back and play deep. Mateus Osetsu, same thing. Forwards have to be able to play on the wing like Dom Dwyer did. Wingers have to sometimes be able to defend like a fullback. We've seen Luisa Araujo do that plenty during his time here in Atlanta. You have to be able to play different roles. And the game is going to take you into that sometimes. Beyond, and this is why formations are overrated, the game isn't static. You don't, like you used to back in the day in U12s, where a coach would tell you, you have this circle and you have to stand right there. And if the ball's over on the other side of the field, I don't care. You're standing right there. You're not moving. Maybe that's why sometimes we get hung up on where you're positioned. That's not how the game plays. Watch futsal. Watch 5-a-side. I love that little kids are playing 3v3 now. It's not about formation. It's not about position. It's about playing. Go get the ball. That thing that you win the game with. You have to put in the back of the net. Go get the thing. You have to be able to do that. So watch how a game plays out. Luis Araujo will be the right winger. He'll end up on the left. He'll end up as a 10. Tyler Wolf will end up as an 8. He might end up as a fullback, depending on where the game goes. And then you get back into what you're trying to do. So Atlanta United's always prioritized soccer players, not rigid position or formation guys, not guys who are not versatile. They want guys who can play. And that's why you can have the situation that you did yesterday where Dom Dwyer has to play on the wing. It was not 2 forwards. He did not play next to Joseph Martinez. He played as a winger. Is he going to tuck inside a little bit more naturally because that's where the game takes him and he feels comfortable? Yes. But he didn't play as a forward next to Joseph or underneath Joseph. He played on the right side. When Araujo was there and when Dwyer was there, it affected what Hosechu had to do. He had to cover the right side more defensively to help Dwyer because Dwyer's not naturally somebody who's going to do the defensive work that Araujo is going to do. It's just different players, different personalities. So you have to adjust. You start to change the personality of the group by changing those characteristics. Other guys have to adapt. Hosechu did a great job with that, covering and doing more defensive work in this game because of it. Alonso had to cover that side a little bit more too. But you have to be able to move around. Wiley, with his pace, he can play as a left winger. We've seen Alphonso Davies do that same kind of thing early on in his career where he's a fullback. No, he's a winger. No, he's a fullback. No, he's a winger. He's a left-sided player. Caleb Wiley's kind of going to be that guy early on, especially. Luckily, you have a great fullback in Andrew Gutman, who I think made a great introduction of himself to the Atlanta United faithful. It's a good day. I think maybe there is an attempt to draw more out of it. I want to see, as I've said from the beginning with the preseason, I want to see what this team looks like when everybody's here and everybody's healthy. Get Thiago Almada in. Get Marcelina Moreno healthy. Have Luis Araujo recover from the hamstring injury. Get him healthy. Build that chemistry. I want to see what they look like because I think they look different than they did yesterday. I think yesterday you saw at the beginning what we talked about all last week. This was going to be a team that maybe early on relied on counter pressure a lot. How'd the first goal get created? Pressure, turnover. Wolf picks it up, plays it to Joseph, back heel, Araujo, boom, goal. That fast. That's vital right now, where you're still building the possession work and the chemistry. That's the thing about, I think, a lot of sports, but especially this one. You can teach defending early on and work on it. Defending, there is an art to it, but it is a lot of coaching and work. Attacking and creating goals, there's a lot of magic there. There's a lot of, somebody has to, see something that you can't really teach. Somebody has to be able to hit a ball, sometimes with the outside of their foot, sometimes with the inside of their foot. Sometimes they have to curl it. Sometimes you have to scoop it. You have to do things that are hard to teach. Certain players are just instinctual with that. You got to build that chemistry. That's going to come. But early on, it might be more of the work that they've put in to play high up the field and press. Now, as Jarrett, as we were talking about before we got started, that ability to do that changed when Araujo left and Dwyer came on, because that's not Dom's game. He's a different player than Luis Araujo. Araujo is elite in counter pressing in my mind in this league. Dwyer is not good in that moment. That's, again, it's just two different players. They do different things. So you couldn't press as high. You had to adapt. And I think Kansas City, you have to give them a lot of credit. They took control of the game and they attacked that side of the field. You look at how they built up their attacks. They tried to get Ndenbe loose down the left side, attacking Atlanta's right. But Atlanta adapted and they played from a little bit deeper position. They didn't have the advantage in possession, but they were able to weather that and look dangerous on the break and create those opportunities. They adapted well.
They did, and it's something that you can look at the goal that they give up with Ndenbe getting up the field, that we talk about with Atlanta United in the past, that when they get up the field, when you play up the field, you are playing with bravery and you are taking risks. Because when you turn it over and you get that live ball turnover that we have talked about in the past, where it's not a shot, it's not a ball that goes out of play, it's not a foul that stops play so you can reset. When you get that live ball turnover in the buildup, and Ndenbe is, in East Jesus up the field, Atlanta gets the turnover. Wolf plays a really good ball, like an underrated ball from Tyler Wolf to Joseph Martinez, and then Joseph Martinez puts it on a dime to Dom Dwyer. Ndenbe's too far up the field, so he can't recover. So you have Fontas with Dom Dwyer one-on-one, and Dom Dwyer wins his one-on-one, then puts it past Tim Melia. But yeah, when you're getting up the field, and credit to Kansas City because they saw the opportunity of, hey, Araujo isn't there, so we're going to take control of this game because that's how they want to play. Sporting
They
Kansas City has style
possession.
too.
Yeah. They dominate possession. They're very Barcelona-esque in that way.
Peter Vermes hasn't been there that long by accident. He knows what he's doing.
Yes.
He saw, like, they say, okay, Araujo isn't there. Okay, cool. We're going to shift this and take control of the game, and Atlanta's going to have to weather its halftime to where they can make adjustments, but then you get the live ball turnover, 3 passes, or 2 passes, and boom, you're in.
I'll give you the number that expresses
that.
The number that expresses that the most is the passing combination that was by far the biggest one in the match was Fontas to Ndenbe. The biggest passing combo that Atlanta had was Alonso to Hernandez 11 times. The biggest one of the match was Fontas to Ndenbe 21 times. Now, some of that's down to the possession, and Kansas City had that, but it was constantly trying to get Ndenbe down that side because Dwyer wasn't going all the way back because, again, that's not what he's ever done in his career. Josetu sliding over. You're betting on one, Ndenbe being able to create from there, and he did a few times, but not enough. And you're betting to either win that side or pull somebody out of the middle and then come into the middle. And you saw them move Johnny Russell around to try to find that. When Janice came on late, the Cypriot winger, Russell came in and he was playing as a completely free number 10. It was just basically get the ball to Russell and let's see what we can do here, because that was what they were reduced to. They weren't able to win the battle on the wings. They weren't able to create dangerous opportunities consistently because they have their identity. And Jarrett, you're dead on. Like, Peter Vermes knows what he wants to do. They have players that fit the way they want to play. And we talked to Daniel Sperry last week, and we talked about the counterattacking and how that's been Kansas City's Achilles heel. And Daniel was really clear in saying it's not just that they don't defend counterattacks. I think that's, a little bit of a fallacy. It's the way Kansas City plays that's going to be just vulnerable to counters because they're betting on being able to pick out Shallowy and Russell in pockets of space. They're betting on Shelton drawing people, being able to lay it off. They're betting on themselves and what they do with the ball to beat you. Any team that does that, because people say the same stuff about Sergio Busquets in Barcelona. You can't play him. He's old. He's slow. You can't do that. He's past it. Well, when Barcelona dominates possession and creates chances, he looks pretty good, right? when they don't create those chances and the ball turns over, they don't look very good. But you're betting on yourselves and your style of play and your identity. And it didn't pay off here because Atlanta outplayed Kansas City in those moments of the match. And I thought the second half was ideal in this, where I remember very specifically on the broadcast, I said Atlanta had match control, and it was a point in the game where the possession had flipped. Atlanta had like 70% of the ball in the first 15, 20 minutes. And then it flipped after the Araujo sub. They didn't have the ball, but they had control because Kansas City's possession was all in the middle third, going nowhere. It was being shut off completely. So the lead at that point was 2-0. You're in complete control because Kansas City can't do what they want to do and find Shallowy and find Russell in those pockets of space. And that was a really good halftime, maybe not adjustment, because I don't think they really changed, Jarrett, going into the second half, but maybe reinforcement of just what the game had turned into and what you had to do. And I thought the midfield trio for Atlanta bossed the game in a lot of ways. Alonso and Sejdic and Hosechi.
Marcelo was stupid good. Atlanta United has been really good at these mid-season grabs for the last few years. You go back and you look at the Justin Mira move. You go back and look at Mo Adams, who turned in some really good performances for Atlanta United when he was here. Mo Adams was got for basically a song and a dance. Marcelo, same thing. Marcelo looked really good. And they all seem to kind of find their rhythm. What was funny about it, and I'll touch on that last bit before we move on about, having control of the game. They're two different teams. Like, Sporting Kansas City isn't as comfortable when they don't have the ball. Atlanta seemed fine without the ball. They want the ball, but if they don't have it, they're not going to implode. Like, they seem fine. Like, oh, Kansas City wants possession. That's fine. We can play without it. We'd rather play with it, but we can play without it and still make things happen, and we can kind of corral you into where we want you to be, where you're not going to bother us.
Yeah. John, anything else from you before we start to get to a few questions?
No, I think that understanding that possession and match control aren't mutually exclusive. You can have one without the other, because with Sporting not being able to do anything, you can have the ball all you want in the middle third, but if you can't do anything with it, then I think that that Atlanta United had a great understanding of what was going on around them. So just understand going forward that just because somebody has the ball, if they're not doing anything with it, then it's still a good thing. So I think that you're spot on with the idea of match control when you're discussing the notion of having the ball at your feet versus not having the ball at your feet. I think that that's an important tenet going forward.
It's not either one, though. Like, match control is not defined by numbers in general. It's defined by the game, and it is a feel to a degree. There are absolutely teams that have match control with possession. There are teams that have match control with hardly any possession. It's all about how that game goes. That's why numbers in the game, and I like to use them in certain ways, but you can't pull isolated numbers and use that to define a match. There is a lot of feel in a game. And this one was interesting because, and Chiefs coach Steve says the term is meaningless possession. And see, I think that's unfair. And look, I saw a lot of comments after this yesterday, and if people are excited about Atlanta having less possession because they were in transition more, you're going to be in for a rude awakening when games happen and it's Atlanta with 60% of the possession and they create 15 chances and win big. There's not some magic blueprint. Possession is not a bad word, and I really hate that it is that way for some. And I hate that some maybe draw it to Frank de Boer and want to cite things from that. Possession's just having the ball. And you do need the ball to score. It's kind of a thing about the sport. You do need it. You don't need all of it. You don't need the ball the whole time to score. But you do need the ball at points to score. And Atlanta has players who are good on the ball. what Gonzalo Pineda, I think, has added to this team, and I think it's something, and I've talked about it all preseason, haven't had the chance to see the preseason games, haven't had the chance to see a couple training sessions. He's added the ability to win in a variety of ways. They're not going to be a team that doesn't want the ball. Please stop the arguing here, people, especially anonymous people here with this. Like, yes, you can win by countering. Duh. We know this. You did yesterday. But possession and thinking it's a bad thing, look, that's just not going to fly either. It's not. I'm sorry. And if if you get frustrated with me talking about possession, don't watch Barcelona either, by the way. There's going to be a few other teams that are going to frustrate you. But don't get hung up on that. Are you being dangerous in the game? Are you creating chances? Yes or no? Because generally, the team that creates more chances is going to win. Generally. Not always. And it's very hard to go into a game and plan to not create chances but win the game. Very hard. Can it happen? Sure. Anything can happen in this sport. That's what makes it so hard, right? That's what makes it so hard to define. That's why you don't see every team play the same way. Other sports, look, I think there's a lot of similarities in what makes winning teams successful. In this sport, I think there's far less. I think you can win with little of the ball but be dangerous on the press. I think you can win with having a very low block and being dangerous on the counter. I think you can win with wanting 80% of the ball and creating 40 chances in a game and having great players. You can win in so many different ways. You can win in a one-off versus winning in a regular season, winning in a tournament format. There are so many different ways. So please don't get hung up on one way to win, that's it. Don't do it. You're going to get frustrated at some point with it. And then that just creates disappointment and all that. It's crazy. What Gonzalo Pineda is doing with this team is they are not as limited. And that's really impressive because it's hard to do. You were able to flip yesterday from first 15 minutes, 71.4% of the ball. I went back to check the stat. Opta has a pretty good new system that you can find some things from a broadcast perspective in, and that was one. I remembered citing it in the game. 71.4% of the possession first 15 minutes. When did Luis Araujo get subbed, John?
Between 22 and 24, depending on how you look at the clock.
Roughly, yeah. Atlanta had possession, but they were also, one reason they had a lot of that possession is they were taking the possession away from Kansas City. Not just having it and keeping it, but getting it and keeping it. There's a difference. They were winning the ball back. Wolf, Araujo, great in their counter pressure early. Great. And he'd get the ball and then try to work to create the chance. 71.4% of the possession. What it end up at, and that is the way this game changed with Araujo's absence, it turned into 43.9% of the possession for the 90. So that's a big change in the remaining 75 minutes. Some of that's game state as well, and that's always a factor in these numbers. You get that goal when Araujo gets subbed. You get a second. You're up 2-0. You've had to make a change. You're not able to press as high. Yes, the game takes you to a certain point. But I do think Atlanta's going to be a team that plays on the front foot with the ball, but also with their counter pressure, because you're not going to be able to counter press as effectively, Jared, if you don't have the possession to begin with, because you've got to get your team up the field. If you do what I think San Jose is one, sorry to pick on your Quakes, I apologize in advance, but
they deserved it after last weekend.
I think what it shows is when you have a team that is just press and you don't do it in the right way and get your team organized to do it, it can be broken easily. And then there's huge gaps and then it all falls apart. If you do it effectively, and a lot of teams do it through having possession, you have the ball. Why did Pep Guardiola say 15 passes to be organized? Because it keeps your team together. It brings your high line up, keeps your team together. That makes your press more effective. Because what did we see early on yesterday? Miles Robinson, George Campbell stepping up 40 yards from the goal they're attacking to win the ball or to close down a play. you can do that when you have the possession, you get into the attacking half, and you can set up shop a little bit. So there's a lot of layers to this, and that's what we try to do here in a 2-hour show on a daily basis where we can go deeper and talk about it, because it's not as simple as they counterattacked, so they won. There's so many reasons as to why that game played out, and honestly, why I think the game in Colorado will be completely different, and why the game against Charlotte will be completely different. Montreal, pretty different. But every opponent presents a different challenge, and you have to be able to adjust. That's what Pineda did yesterday, and that's what the players did, because, look, I mean, you weren't able to draw diagrams for him, when you pull Araujo and you bring on Dwyer. Alonso, Hosechu have to understand and read it quickly. Hey, he plays that wing very differently than Araujo does. We got to help him a little bit. We got to help on that side. He's in an unfamiliar role. Let's help him some. And they did. Especially Hosechu. I thought Hosechu looked like a right winger at times because of his positioning, because he was over to that side helping more. It's just, when you have what the adversity that Atlanta had with the injuries and with Araujo leaving in the match, Jared, I think winning the way that they did shows the work that they put in the preseason to build their game model, and also the variations that make a good game model.
Yeah, it's gonna be different every time out, because not everybody's gonna play the same way Kansas City did. You might not see a team like Kansas City for a while, because what do you got? Colorado next. Colorado's not gonna play that way. Colorado also got blasted off the field by LAFC.
That they did,
buddy. That was something else.
It was not pleasant.
But Charlotte's not gonna. Neither one of them are gonna try and basically, like, this isn't a duel where they're bringing sabers at dawn. Neither one of them are gonna bring a saber. Both of them are going to want to sit back more, so you can't, what are you going to, like, punt the ball to them and say, here, carry the play? They're not going to want to do that, so you're going to have to carry it. You're going to have to create off of it, and you can do that. I mean, you can do what Kansas City was doing with different skill players. Kansas City overloaded the field a number of times on the left-hand side, and then would try and hit a quick switch to Johnny Russell to get him isolated one-on-one where he could do something in space. Yeah. And, man, we haven't talked about Andrew Gutman yet, man. Andrew Gutman was a damn problem yesterday in all the right ways.
Yeah, he was great. 6 tackles, 1. Really, really impressive.
The stupidest damn yellow card that Ted Uncle could have given him for not understanding context made me nervous, because I thought when it happened, I'm like, okay, Gutman's playing well. Now he's going to have to be a little more careful because Ted Uncle didn't read the room correctly. But Gutman conducted himself so well after that.
There's not a ton to talk about that. I had a bunch of people asking. Like, there's no rationale. I think Emilio asked about what was the rationale behind it. It's just a mistake. I think what's disappointing about it for me is I get how in that moment there was an offside call, which nobody picked up at the time. I was focused on Araujo can't move. He's going to have to go down. They're going to have to sub him. So Uncle blew the whistle that I don't think anybody really caught. Gutman played the ball out, and he was pointing at Araujo, making it clear, like, hey, I'm playing it out because my player's hurt, and he's got to get subbed. I get how Uncle could misconstrue that. That's fine. That's why you have a fourth official. That's why you have AR. Somebody has to help him there and say, hey, give him the benefit of the doubt. He's playing it out because his player's hurt. He didn't hear the whistle, because I didn't realize it either. You can wave that off.
It's one of the side effects of the fact that our game is officiated in a way now where the AR is going to maybe not put his flag up until later, because they'll see how things play out. So when players keep playing through it, I don't understand the concept of being so strict about, he kicked the ball. Yeah, he kicked the ball away in that moment. Well, we got ARs who don't put the flags up because they're told not to, which is fine. But if you're going to do that, then have a little bit of flexibility and understand the context of the moment. It's not the 88th minute and Atlanta's kicking it away to waste time.
Just fix it. Yeah, I mean, just afterwards, like, somebody needs to tell Ted Uncle, like, hey, I think we can get away with no yellow here. Why don't you wave that off and do it? That's all you got to do. It's easy. I thought in general, Uncle was fine. The yellow to Robinson was correct. Yep. It was, his arm was up high.
The other ones were fine.
He didn't throw
it.
No
problem with the other one.
The yellow on Alonso was fine. That was correct. It was a reckless challenge. It was late.
Mm-hmm.
He called 21 fouls, which is a little bit less than his usual average. 6 on Atlanta, 15 on Kansas City. Kansas City fans might disagree that Uncle was fine. I thought he was fine in this. I didn't have any issues. That yellow on Gutman's the one that I have a problem with. I think it's just a mistake and miscommunication by the crew to fix it. That's the biggest issue I have. Yeah, I had no problem. I had no problem with Uncle. I thought he was fine. There's plenty of other games that we can complain about referees. One mistake in a game doesn't make you a bad ref. I thought he was all right. I had no problem.
Yeah, that was the only beef I had with him. But back to the original point.
Well, Thomas says he missed some incredibly obvious calls that literally every player on the field thought would be called. I think there was one of those. I think there was one.
My favorite one was when Johnny Russell speared Andrew Gutman and like basically put his entire life force into Gutman's hip.
Yeah.
Because that one was hilarious. Because everyone just kind of stopped and assumed the foul would be called.
Yeah.
And then it just
did.
Yeah.
They went, I guess we're still playing.
Well,
okay.
Look, if we can find a ref who gets every call right in 90 minutes, show him to me because like if that's the one they mess up, I'll take it. That didn't affect anything.
I don't love Ted Uncle. I'm pretty clear about that. But
yeah,
he was fine for the most part yesterday.
He was fine.
He called it tight and loosened up as he went. Either way.
That's an old school tactic. That's the old school way of like, hey, I'm gonna assert my authority early on. And the yellows were right; they weren't even over.
Yeah,
like the yellows to Robinson and Alonso were dead on. Like it wasn't that he's throwing cards early to loosen up. He did let more contact go as the day went on, which I'd honestly like maybe go the other way a lot of times. Is try to let it be looser early and see where it goes before I tighten it up, but that's down to a ref's personality. Uncle wasn't the story yesterday, which is good.
But as far as, how you can build with possession, yeah, like look at what Kansas City was doing where they overloaded and then would switch it to one side or the other quickly. And try and get Johnny Russell isolated, or trying to get Daniel Shalhoub isolated. And yeah, Atlanta's going to do that at times because you're going to, if everyone's healthy, have opportunities where you can have Luis Araujo or Marcelina Moreno isolated one-on-one. You'll take those opportunities and then have Joseph Martinez running into the box. Like, yeah, you want to create those. So, yeah, you can create with possession. Kansas City did. Kansas City created with possession last year to the tune of the second most goals in the league. It's just the way they operate, and they'll be fine. I think I'm not worried about, I know we love week one overreactions in MLS. Kansas City's going to be fine.
Yeah, I think they'll be fine. I don't know if they are an MLS Cup contender. That's really I had that question before. Nothing changed. Again, it was two good teams yesterday. I thought it was one of the better games that I got a chance to pay close attention to. Two good teams, and they battled. I'm good with that. I think Kansas City's a little bit lower down the pecking order in the West. A lot of that's because of Polito, and a lot of that is down to, we got to see what Vunjevic can do. Can he be a suitable replacement? I don't know yet. I haven't seen him. Also, I do have questions about Shalhoub. It is a contract year, and sometimes that goes really well for a team. Sometimes that goes really badly for a team if he's distracted. So we'll see. I think they are a middle of the playoff picture team in the West. That's kind of where I'm looking at Kansas City. Jared, are you with us past 10 or are you with us till 10?
I'm with you till 10, and I might make a return. We'll see.
Well, then I will throw this one in really quickly. Jason Heinley, and he tweeted it at us yesterday while we were doing the full-time report. I feel like a lot of people have picked up what you and I have been putting down, and we can jointly claim the head of the George Campbell fan club membership situation. I think we've both been on that train for a long time.
I mean, you get to run the George Campbell one. I have the Bryce Washington one. It's fine. I'm okay with this.
Okay, then I am taking credit for the George Campbell one because I think some people are trying to claim that for themselves. I said that he would make the national team by 26. I wish I'd not written it down when I said that. I said it last year in a conversation with people, but I said it on the show probably around the first of the year. Jason
The only thing
Heinley.
you've ever written down, I still have a screenshot of a text that I'll put in the Discord that you sent me back in 2016.
I did. What did I say?
Yes,
That's dangerous.
you predicted the managers in MLS, like the managerial moves, and you got like 3 of the 4 right.
Oh wow!
Really?
Like this is before, like you predicted Heath to Minnesota, Siggy Schmidt back to LA.
Yeah.
And I forget what you predicted for. I forget what the other one was, but yeah, I think so. I'll share that one because it was accurate.
Okay.
You should feel good about it.
Hey, look, I'm gonna miss
because there was a time. There was the time when like Adrian Heath was being talked about. Like, does Heath go to Atlanta?
Yes.
We had no idea about Tata Martino yet.
Yeah, it was in the summer, I'm guessing, because Tata came a little bit later after Copa America Centenario, and that started to flare up that he was a possibility. Look, I miss stuff too all the time, and some of y'all love to point that out and really make a big deal about it. Give me a little credit on George Campbell. Jason Heinley wants to go further and says Campbell to Europe before Miles. Your thoughts, Jared?
Oh, you know what? I could honestly see it though. I don't know if I'm gonna buy it, but if it happens, I'm not gonna sit here and scream to the heavens of no, that's wrong, because he is younger. Some team might look at him and say that guy is younger, still a bit raw. Again, Atlanta growing has decided to basically turn their center back academy into there's not much difference between them and basically anyone who played the strong safety rover role for the University of Georgia in the early to mid 2000s, a la Greg Blue, Thomas Davis era. They're just physically monstrous human beings. Go stand next to Miles Robinson. He's a very large human.
And George Campbell's bigger, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I am thoroughly entertained at times by the wide disparity in talking points about anything related to the sport. Because there were people tweeting yesterday, and look, they were, again, maybe new to the picture because we've said this on this show plenty of times. George Campbell, potential national team. People were tweeting that about how good he was yesterday. And there are people in the Discord or in the Twitch pitch right now saying that George Campbell was bad yesterday. So, I got nothing. He was fine. I think watching yesterday, no, I'm not necessarily saying he's ready to start in a World Cup qualifier tomorrow. But I don't think he was bad yesterday either. I don't think he was that shaky at all. Did he make a couple mistakes? Yeah, he did. He did. And I was talking with Jarrett last night about it. It's like, that's something he's got to clean up. He's also 20. Mm-hmm. He's probably going to make mistakes, and that's okay. He covered his mistakes pretty well. He had one where it was a giveaway. He recovered positionally really well to prevent a dangerous opportunity out of it. What did he do yesterday? Jumped into 2 passing lanes, had 2 interceptions. That's good. Won 4 of his 5 ground duels. That's good. Didn't have any aerial duels. That's kind of weird. Just the way the game played out. 45 of 51 on his passing. So 6 bad passes out of 51. That's 88%. That's fine. 4 out of 5 on his long balls. That is very good. 2 out of 2 on his dribble attempts carrying it forward. That's good. He took 1 shot that he was really feeling himself, put it into the stands. That's fine. You compare it to Miles Robinson yesterday. Look, SofaScore, for example, and it's all based on the numbers that they did in their production. SofaScore gave Campbell a 6.9, gave Miles Robinson a 7.5. What is the difference? Let's compare. Campbell had 10 clearances. Miles had 3. Miles blocked 2 shots. Miles had 3 interceptions to Campbell's 2. Miles won a tackle as well. He had the clearance off the line. I thought Campbell had got that. It was Miles who got it. So that gives you a little bit of a boost as well. Passing, Miles had less of the ball, 30 of 36 passing, 2 of 6 on the long ball for Robinson. Nothing else in terms of being in the final third or dribbling attempts or anything like that. Fairly comparable. The clearance off the line is a big part of the bump in the number, I think. Also, he had a little bit more on the interceptions. He had a tackle. He had less of the ball. They were both very good. You give up a goal off a set piece, nothing from the run of play against the team that was one of the highest scoring teams in MLS last season. I'll take that. I'll absolutely take that. I don't think he was national team material yesterday, and I don't think he was bad yesterday. I think Campbell was good. I think Robinson was a little bit better. I think the entire back line was very good as a unit. And I would maybe say Gutman was the best of those. And he got a 7.1 according to SofaScore. Again, I think that clearance off the line really boosts your number because it's such a vital play. Goals obviously boost your number. Assists boost your number. Chances created boost your number. Big chances boost your number further. Clearing a ball off the line is going to boost your number. And I think that's why Robinson had the best of the four defenders. Gutman was a 7.1. Ronald Hernandez was a 7.3. We haven't really talked about Ronald here, Jarrett, since you are about to leave us. He had 4 interceptions, 1 a tackle, 40 of 44 passing, 1 chance created, 1 of 3 on his crosses, 2 of 3 on his long balls. Ronald Hernandez was very, very good yesterday on that right side, again, with more to deal with, maybe on his heels a little bit more with Adarauju's injury.
Yeah, this is a good kind of day because we're nitpicking at this point. We're not looking at major things that people did wrong. We're nitpicking. That's a good place to be in. If I have to nitpick for him, I want him to be a little more predictive about getting forward, and being, predicting that diagonal ball into the attack. There was 1 or 2 situations where I think the pass went a little bit. I think Tyler Wolf put one in there that he reacted a little bit late to, and they weren't on the same page. But he was not. That's like we're nitpicking. Everything else about Ronald Hernandez was really good, and then you just basically went full Leroy Jenkins with how many fullbacks can we put on the field? We can put all of them on the field, all of them at once.
Because
it was
they're
hilarious,
versatile
and I know it's a matter of because they're versatile players and because you're missing bodies.
Yes.
Because you had two goalkeepers on the bench, not because you just felt like doing it, because you're missing bodies. I thought it was hilarious because we're just going to throw Caleb Wiley in there. Okay, what's he going to do? Well, Marcelina Moreno is going to play a really pretty ball. Then Caleb Wiley, with the most gangster move imaginable, is going to slide it past Tim Melia and start his celebration when the ball is still 10 feet away from the goal because he is just about that life.
That's true. That's true. It was great to see Wiley get that
Caleb
moment.
Wiley knows. Caleb Wiley is wonderful. Also, yes, Ricky. I said this yesterday. Somebody call Greg and tell him about the Don Wire goal.
No, stop. We're not a tabloid, Jarrett. Don't be like some of them, please.
Cowards. Okay.
Yeah, that's okay. That's fine. I'll be a coward from being a tabloid. Yes.
Yes, it was full Leroy Jenkins, y'all. Because that was. You put 4 fullbacks on the field because they're versatile to do it, and it was damn hilarious to watch because Atlanta just at that point they didn't care. They're like, "Hey, we're gonna see this out. We're gonna put these guys up there. They're gonna cause problems." Brooks Lennon should have probably had an assist.
Yes. I got to disagree. It wasn't Leroy Jenkins, Jarrett. No, it wasn't Leroy Jenkins because Leroy Jenkins would be no, because that would be like. I have no idea if this is going to work or not. Let's just do it.
A YOLO kind of a thing.
This was not that at all. We've seen Brooks Lennon play as a right winger with Ronald Hernandez behind him. We saw that last season. We watched Caleb Wiley play as a left winger for Jack Collison. And we talked about that on the radio broadcast. And that's something Gonzalo Pineda's mentioned in preseason, that he might use guys in those roles. It wasn't the Dom Dwyer substitution was more of that, but you bring him on in that situation because of his experience, and you're not putting that pressure on Wiley in that moment to bring him on that early and play as a winger. And I don't think Lennon had the fitness to be able to play that long. So if you want the Leroy Jenkins move, it's playing Dom Dwyer as a right winger, in my opinion. The fullbacks playing wingers at the end, this is something they've worked on. This is something that they've talked about. And just because you had both of them in that moment was just the way the game took it. It wasn't risky. It didn't feel risky to me. I think that's why I feel like it wasn't like a Leroy Jenkins YOLO kind of move.
I had fun.
It was what it was. Like, it was what you needed at that point. And it paid off because Lennon created chances and Wiley got a goal. So like it worked. It worked really well.
Yeah, I had fun with it, and um, I'm sure everyone's going to be calm, measured, and he's going about this for the next week before you go to Colorado
Yeah,
and have to play around
conversations
the
are all
Prairie
over the
Dogs with
place.
a Colorado team that, and we'll get into more MLS stuff because the weekend had some really stupid things, especially on Saturday. Saturday was much stupider than Sunday. Um, just leave it at that.
Yeah, there was some dumb stuff on Sunday too, but we'll get into all that today and tomorrow. Dylan Butler will join us tomorrow from MLSsoccer.com. We'll get deeper into the league-wide stuff. Jarrett, thank you for your time. Hopefully you stay on the living side of things here.
Hopefully you're not dead.
Yeah, same.
I was trying to be kinder in the way I
Yeah,
said that, but
that's
anyway. Don't die. How about that?
Anywho, I'll see you.
Don't die.
Don't die.
Wow. Orders now. I see how it is.
I wasn't
Boss
going
me.
there. John's the one who went
Not
there, and I
anymore,
just kept
anyway.
going. I went Leroy Jenkins on it. How about
Not
that?
my boss anymore.
Bye,
See ya.
Jarrett. All right.
All right.
Let's get into John telling us about our good friends, Eliminize.
Proud sponsors of everything SDH. QR code over my left shoulder. For those of you watching on Twitch at twitch.tv/soccer down here. For odor-free, clean, fresh air, one place you need to go. And it is Eliminize service. Deodorizing enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos. They've created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors, including pets, cigarettes, and food. Realtors and property managers use the Eliminize service to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent their homes that much faster. The Eliminize service offers a turnkey process that makes it easy to work with realtors and property managers. Kind of the environment, a green way to get rid of odors without any kind of toxic residue, different than our favorite masking agents that we use from underneath the sink or wherever we have said masking agents that just take care of the odor and do not address the issue. That's a proven scientific formula that Eliminize has that destroys odors down to the molecule. Pricing easy, one of two ways, either by cubic feet or parts per million to come up with a price that's affordable for you. Offering results in 24 hours or less. If you have questions frequently asked or otherwise, one place you need to go is the website, eliminize.com. And do us a favor, go /Atlanta after the .com so they know what part of the world that you are talking to them from. The website, ELIMINIZ.com /Atlanta, eliminize.com /Atlanta for odor-free, clean, fresh air. Eliminize service, proud sponsors of everything SDH.
Excellent. People want to hear about your new gig, John.
It was very humbling to have been considered and asked. And it's fun to hang out with Beth Keener, where we kind of get to do like a 2.5-minute sports cast about the first half and discuss statistics, look at highlights, and have the play of the first half, which was the Aruju goal, and kind of break that down and do some fancy graphics and things like that. But no, it's very fun, very humbling to have been asked, and it's going to be fun hanging out with Beth Keener all season at halftime.
Halftime on the Halo board. You'll see John and Beth talking about the first half of action. Everybody is reporting this in Europe. FIFA is set to suspend Russian teams from international football until further notice. They tried to go a different direction yesterday, and everybody said that they were being stupid. So now they're going to reconsider. And UEFA has, I think, had a huge role in this. Dan Rohn said that they're working closely with UEFA. Dan Rohn's of the BBC. Announcement expected later today. That could come at any point. And what that entails, are they suspended for now from international play? Are they removed from the competitions that they are in? It was being reported that UEFA was going to remove Spartak Moscow from the Europa League. That was different than what FIFA had said. Bild reported this morning that Spartak Moscow, their match with RB Leipzig, would be canceled. Spartak would be thrown out of the tournament, and that would put Leipzig automatically into the quarterfinals. Now, World Cup qualifiers are coming up in about a month's time. Are they suspended for now? And if they're still suspended when we get to that point, then those games don't get played, and whoever was supposed to play them advances past it. Or if things change, does that change? I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see what FIFA does with this. But it is being reported everywhere by all of the leading journalists in Europe that FIFA is going to do something about these Russian teams. more than what they said they were going to do yesterday, which was basically nothing. BBC is reporting that heads and governing bodies of all sports have been asked to not allow athletes or officials from Russia and Belarus to participate in any organized international competitions by the IOC. So, yeah, this is about to get complicated. FIFPro called for the suspension of the Russian Football Union. That's happened this morning. FIFA's statement yesterday was kind of a joke. So now it's what's going to happen. So we'll see. We'll see what their announcement is, and we'll see, do they remove them from World Cup qualifying, and then what do they do? Do they add whoever would have been there in place of them and change it up that way, or is it just they're out and it continues the way that it is? We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of discussions in boardrooms trying to figure out how things are going to look as we're heading toward a World Cup. You mentioned other sports bodies, and the International Ice Hockey Federation has now gotten involved, especially with Russia and Belarus, asking for their expulsion from tournaments that are upcoming. So this hopefully is the first salvo of information dealing with the exclusion of Russia from tournaments.
Yeah, UEFA was supposed to have a crisis meeting tomorrow, according to Martin Ziegler of the Times in London. That has been pushed up to 5 p.m. today. That's going to be noon our time, I am assuming. This is about Gazprom and their sponsorship of UEFA competitions. UEFA is going to likely terminate that deal, and they have to make a decision about the Women's European Championships, which is this summer in England. A lot of countries, like England, made a statement yesterday they're not going to play Russian teams. Yes, I get the statement, but the important part of the conversation is not that. It was more important what Poland and the Czech Republic did, because they are scheduled to play Russian teams here coming up. Saying you're not going to schedule a game with them really doesn't matter. What's the most important is what UEFA and FIFA do, because they're the governing bodies of these competitions, and they have to make the decision. And it sounds like those are being pushed forward rather quickly now after some wishy-washiness. So be ready for that. That could come at any time. We'll let you know if it happens while we are live. Other big news from the world of football over the weekend: Marcelo Bielsa gone from Leeds. It was time. We talked about it all year long. It felt like it was time at the end of the season. People I think are talking about this in a million different ways. The connection that he'll have with Leeds is forever. That's not going to go away. But it was time. And Leeds is apparently ready to appoint Jesse Marsch as the replacement. Now, this is different than Marsch replacing Nagelsmann at RB Leipzig, where it was Marsch's style that Nagelsmann had taken into a different direction, that Marsch took over that team that maybe wasn't ready to go back to the way Jesse Marsch would want to play. Leeds can do a lot of what Jesse Marsch wants to do, but Leeds is a team that had no problem with having the ball. So how will Marsch adapt that? We'll just have to see. Do they become heavier on the press, less on possession? Does he try to continue with what they've done under Bielsa? That's fascinating to me. But when Marsch's name came up as a successor for Bielsa at the end of the year, I can see it working. I can see it. There is some similarity. But Marsch, the players, and the club have to be ready to adapt to a different spin on the philosophy. And that's why club identities, that's why we talk about it a lot. That's why that stuff's important, because if you just hire people willy-nilly, if you just go sign players willy-nilly, you don't really find success. Unless you're just able to buy the best players in the world, and then at some point you out-talent people, and we see some of that with PSG at times. And Pochettino is a guy who actually wants to play a certain way, but he's not able to do that when his club is just going out and buying people. Just, hey, this guy's really good. This guy's really good. This guy's really good. Cool. Figure it out. Marsch coming in at Leeds is along the same pathway to a degree. How do they adjust? That's going to be the question. That's going to be really, really interesting. Other stuff in the news front worldwide, and we'll bounce around MLS here as well really quickly. Let's see. Rumors and innuendo. Of course, there's a rumor about Lionel Messi coming to Miami because it's a day that ends in Y. If he decides to leave PSG, Miami will push to sign him. Yes, they will, as will probably many, many other clubs in the world. That's not a shock. Goal.com has the latest on that. Erling Haaland, according to reports and mainly Jan Ajafjortoft, who is from Norway as well, and good friends with Haaland, and had that interview that Haaland kind of threw some shade at Borussia Dortmund on. He has not agreed to join Real Madrid in the summer yet. Barcelona hope to be in the race, and now we're back to talking about the release clause of 75 million euro from Marca. I'm sure Barcelona hopes that it would only be that amount, and then whatever they're going to have to pay him and his agent to get him to come to Barcelona, who they have a good relationship with in Mino Raiola, but it's also a lot of money that Barcelona maybe doesn't have. So good times. Do things change with Calvin Phillips with Bielsa gone from Leeds now? Manchester United has been linked to Calvin Phillips before. Does this push that higher up the priority list? Declan Rice has also been linked with Manchester United. The Manchester Evening News thinks that maybe Phillips becomes more of a target now that Bielsa's gone. I don't know if that really affects it. Phillips could be a really good fit for the way that Jesse Marsch wants to play. But Phillips is one of the best holding midfielders in England, and big clubs are going to be coming after him. So nothing's changed in that regard. Roy Keane is telling people and telling Manchester United to appoint Diego Simeone as the next boss. And again, when you get to philosophy and you get the style, that's really different. And it's really different than what they're doing right now with Ralph Rangnick. And that was really different than what they were doing before. So, yeah, that sounds like a plan for success. Have fun, guys. Just make it up as you go. In Italy, Napoli is on top of Serie A. Fabian Ruiz, injury time winner. Lorenzo Insigne, soon to come to Toronto, scored the first goal for Napoli. They have the better head-to-head record with Milan. That is a tiebreaker in Serie A. Inter are 2 points back, but they have a game in hand. Napoli hasn't won Serie A since 1990. They got 2 titles in their history. Both were when Maradona was there, 87 and 90. They're on top right now. See if they can hold on. Serie A is not going to postpone league fixtures to help Italy prepare for their World Cup playoffs. Match day 29 and 30 had been requested by the Federation to be postponed. They're not going to be postponed. Sure, that'll go over well, and everybody will be very happy with that decision in Italy. Barcelona, Aubameyang, 5th goal in 3 games. They beat Bilbao big time. Barcelona is unbeaten over 90 minutes since December 8th. Back up to 4th in La Liga. They're ahead of Atleti right now. Memphis Depay and Luke de Jong are the only players to score more goals for Barcelona this entire season than Aubameyang, who's just joined recently. Ousmane Dembele had a big game as well, raising that price when he goes out on free. I want to get into the Carabao Cup. I'm sure, John, you were watching this from the booth in Mercedes-Benz Stadium because it's England.
I was bouncing between that and Montreal and Orlando.
I'm shocked.
Keeping an eye on what's going on around Major League Soccer.
Okay, well, what do you think about the Carabao Cup?
That Kepa does not need to shoot any more penalties.
Well, who else was supposed to take the penalty, by the way?
I know.
But that's important. No, that's important.
You're at the end of the order, and you have no choice. And Kepa really, and if you look at all of the other penalties, and I think that this also speaks to goalkeepers kicking in penalty kick shootout situations because if they're in, because I'm building.
But you're making a broad assumption about goalkeepers taking penalties, which is erroneous. There are plenty of goalkeepers who take penalties really well. I know where you're trying to go because I pulled the information.
Right.
We'll come back to that. That's different. Go look at Rogerio Ceni, who played with Sao Paulo for a number of years. Excellent on free kicks and penalties. Go tell Jose Luis Chilavert. No, actually, don't tell Chilavert anything because he might headbutt you. Chilavert scored a ton of goals and took penalties. It's not a goalkeeper thing. It's a nerves thing.
Yeah.
And we'll come back to that. This was a penalty shootout that was crazy. It went 11 rounds. One miss in the entire shootout.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They did the thing where they brought on Kepa for the shootout, which always gets people riled up. There's a great thread by Gare Jordet, and this is where John was trying to go, but you were going about it the wrong way, and I wanted to save you on that one.
Okay.
What Jordet, he studies the psychology of the game, and penalty shootouts are tons of psychology. Here's a couple points from his thread. Go read it, and he's definitely a great follow. Kepa took the fastest penalty, but that's not a goalkeeper thing. This is why I stopped you, John. Again, because there are plenty of goalkeepers who take penalties and do it well. This is a nerves thing. He took it fastest. So a 0.4 second reaction to the ref whistle. So the ref blows the whistle. He immediately took the shot.
Yep.
That historically, through research, is linked to somebody who's uncomfortable. You want to get it over with.
Yep.
So that was Kepa. And that's also, was he feeling the nerves at that point? Yeah, everybody else had made a penalty.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure he was feeling the nerves. People are going to yell about bringing on Kepa, the substitute there, to take that.
Yep.
Outcome bias is a real thing. Last 3 shootout wins, they've done this. So when you don't win 1 of 4 and it goes 11 rounds, which is abnormal, and Kepa's the one who misses the shot, and he's not normally a shooter, he's the 11th of the 11, that doesn't make the decision to bring him on bad.
It's recency bias.
It's outcome bias. Yes. It's okay, it didn't work this time, so it's a bad idea. No, it actually worked the last 3 times. And he's better on penalties. Mendy, the success of a shooter against Mendy in a penalty, 94%. The success of a shooter against Kepa, 71%. That's a significant difference.
Mm-hmm.
So, makes sense. Okay, now this is another one that's really interesting. This goes back to why I it's not fair to kill Kepa here on this. When a shootout goes far, and this was from Jordet, who studies the psychology of these situations. When it goes far, the pressure is intensified when you are past the 5 kickers, because it's all sudden death at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And these are not your better kickers, so that ramps it up even further. Everything's must score. In Jordet's research, when it goes past the first 5, only about 60% of those are made. Chelsea made 6 of those, 5 of those. Okay, that's pretty good. Liverpool was even better. They made them all. That's incredible. 60% when you get past it. How many times have we seen these shootouts? I think the Colorado Comunicaciones shootout is a prime example, where you had a bunch of misses after 5.
6 in a row at one point.
Yeah, because pressure intensifies, quality of the taker is not as high. But the things that stood out, Kepa obviously not comfortable taking it at that point, but he didn't have a choice. He had to, because everybody else had taken it. Mm-hmm. So that is what it is. The outcome bias part, killing Tommy Tuchel for putting Kepa on, that's not fair, because they've won the last 3 times with him doing it, and he's demonstrably better on penalties than Mendy. They lost a shootout. It's a roll of the dice. Like, it sucks. It sucks. But nobody really got it wrong in this thing. Kepa missed.
For a goalless draw, it was one of the most exciting 90 minutes where no one scored. And I know that we all looked at the Joel Matip goal late in the second half as the breakthrough, and it was pulled back by VAR because of by the foul by Van Dijk in the buildup off the set piece. But for a goalless draw, and then another 30, and then the shootout, it was tremendous what we saw there in the Gummy Bear Cup. And to give people an idea, the numbers that you broke down, difference between Mendy and Kepa, just as a round example. Mendy allows a goal in a shootout or in a penalty kick situation.
Hold on one second. Sorry. Yeah. David, this is the point, though. You're missing. Mendy gives up 94% of the penalties that he defends are scored. Kepa at 71. Yes, Kepa didn't make a save here. But when you've won 3 in a row by doing this move, and one time it doesn't work, you can't say the strategy is wrong. You can't. I mean, it didn't work. who's to say that Mendy would have saved anything? There's no statistical record to say that Mendy would have been better in shooting, which pull his record. Let's see if he's taken a penalty, or making a save that he doesn't make better than Kepa. So, like, it didn't work. But to say the strategy was wrong, I think is unfair. That's the outcome bias. You know, just because it didn't work here doesn't mean the strategy doesn't work. Nothing's foolproof in this game, as we talked about earlier with styles and strategies and all of it. There's no perfect way to play. There's no perfect decision on how to take a shootout. You get down to 11v11, it's just crazy. It didn't work, but I don't think it would have worked better if you hadn't made the move. That's the point. So I don't think the strategy's incorrect. It just didn't work here. There's a difference.
Specifically, you look at the. I mean, if you break down the numbers that you gave into a round simple form, Mendy lets in a penalty kick 19 out of every 20 times. Kepa, by comparison, would only do that 14 out of every 20 times. That's your difference right there. On average, 5 more saved by Kepa over a 20 kick span. That's huge when you think about it.
Yeah, it's a big deal because and Tuchel's not a, just trust in your gut kind of guy either. I mean, he's going to follow the numbers here. And they're pretty clearly in favor of Kepa being better on penalties. Just because he didn't make a save here doesn't mean he's not good on penalties. Give Liverpool credit. They made him. And you're supposed to. You know, it's dipped over the years. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, really before you started all the studying of things, it was said that 9 out of 10 penalties are made. I think now it's probably somewhere closer to 8 out of 10. Some 8 point something out of 10. I think goalkeepers are better. I think, some of the pressure has ramped up in different situations. I think it's just gotten harder to do. But still, if it's 8, if it's 9 out of 10, somewhere in between, you're supposed to make the penalty. And if a goalkeeper doesn't make a save, it's not a negative on the goalkeeper. It's not. If they get anything in there, it's a bonus. It's a bonus. That's why what Comunicaciones keeper did and what William Yarbrough did was amazing, because they made some tough saves in that shootout. This one, look, you good people. Good stuff. Keeper, there's a lot more studying. That's a good point, Jason Nix. There's a lot more studying in general of technique, but also that you've got it. You can pull it up very quickly in a database from the bench when you're getting close to a shootout of, okay, who's taking their penalties? We have them all on film. This is what they do. They go to the right. This guy goes to the right every time. You have that data that you didn't have back in the day.
Write it on the water bottle and keep the tape there and just kind of, put it to the side so you have it as reference. Yeah.
Yeah, you can literally just tell the person too. You don't have to always write it on the water bottle. That was 2006. We've passed that a little bit. You can show them the video at the end of the extra time period and say, look, this is what this guy does. Here it is. There's so many different ways to do this stuff now. It's just, it's hard. It goes 11v11. Anybody who's blaming Kepa for that, I think, is incorrect. I think is being really unfair. It didn't work this time. Liverpool was better on penalties. That's how they decided it. I hate winning or losing by penalties, but at some point you have to end the game.
Yeah.
And that's the way that we've decided to end these games and have a tiebreaker, is a penalty shootout. If they weren't cowards, they would have the 35-yard shootout like MLS and NASL used to do back in the day.
Awesome.
And then we get all kinds of chaos. But
probably would end sooner too.
Very well could. You wouldn't have as many scored, that's for sure. But it would still be chaos. I hate deciding a game that way. That's why when we have these conversations about stuff, it goes down as a draw, and people want to argue that. No, it's a draw. The tiebreaker went to Liverpool here, and they get the trophy. So crazy game, crazy shootout in that. A lot of crazy VAR situations too that I'm sure people are being level-headed about. Argentina 2-2 draw between River and Racing. We're talking about it because Ezequiel Barco had a golazo for River, his debut goal. Great to see Barquito with a goal and the reaction from him. And he's an Independiente guy originally, so scoring against Racing, they love that sort of thing down there. So very happy for Barquito and River. They couldn't get the win, though. Great game. Brazil didn't get a great game. Grêmio and Internacional were supposed to play. Gremio players were hurt when fans attacked their team bus on the way to the game. These are two teams from Porto Alegre. Huge rivalry, and a player that you probably will remember their name, Matias Villasanti, who was linked to Atlanta United at one point. He is with Gremio, and Gremio posted a picture of Villasanti being taken to a hospital in an ambulance. Smashed windows, a rock bigger than a fist, it said, hit Villasanti. Gremio said, after the cowardly and absurd aggression suffered by our delegation, we have told the Gaucho Football Federation of our decision not to go ahead with the derby this Saturday. Internacional said it repudiated the violence, adding that 2 suspects had been arrested. Gremio later said that Villasanti was treated for concussion and cranial trauma. It could just be a head injury. That sounds really bad, but if we're talking concussion, that's probably where we're at. Being treated for lacerations to the face, trauma in his hip, and would spend the night in the hospital for further observation. No fractures reported. Insanity. Second time in 3 days that a bus had been attacked on the way to a game. It happened in a game in Salvador before. You also had fans wielding metal bars that invaded the pitch and attacked Piranha players in a match in Curitiba. So Brazil has taken the crown from France in having ridiculous fans in this past season. Good on you, Brazil. You've got the belt right now. Hopefully you hit yourself in the head with it. And maybe find a way to try to stop it. But good luck with all that. Ugh. Yeah, Villasanti, that's horrible.
That's, I just, it just drives me crazy when you have fans dealing with extremes. And yes, we all know that fan is short for fanatic. But when you have stuff like that, yeah, Brazil definitely is the current belt holder. They have, they have won the TV title right now from everybody in France.
Yeah, I know people say that all the time whenever we talk about fans, whether it's overreactions or whatever, that it's short for fanatic. That doesn't make it okay.
No.
That doesn't make it acceptable to be in anything about this kind of stuff. To be, emotionally invested, yes, that's okay. To throw rocks at buses, that's not okay. To storm a field with metal bars, that is definitely not okay.
It's not okay.
To say horrible things about people, that is not okay. There are plenty of reasons why being a fanatic is not a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, we can. Hopefully, Internacional bans the fans that they have said did horrible things and take care of this. And just like the Nottingham Forest fan who was arrested and banned and name was all over the place, 19-year-old. Good. Make a point of this. If you want to act like an idiot, you're going to get treated like that idiot, and you're going to get shown to be an idiot worldwide, and you're not going to be able to be part of this. So
and hopefully if it gets to the point to where you have to spend time in jail to remind you that you're an idiot, more power to it.
Yeah, it's not anything to celebrate or glorify or any of that. And I'm glad I didn't see any fan incidents in MLS this weekend. We can't have any in this. It's not acceptable when it happens in college sports where it happens. It's not acceptable when it happens in the NFL. It's not great that, Philadelphia had to have a jail in the bottom of the vet back in the day. That's not a badge of honor. That's stupid. That you need to get to that point. So it needs to be talked about in that way.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we haven't seen any here. I'm afraid that we will at some point, and I will not be okay when it happens. It's going to be pointed out that these people need to be banned. If it's for life, it's for life. If it's for 10 years, I think is the kid at Nottingham Forest, 19-year-old. That's why I'm calling him a kid. 10 years. Okay. If that's the bar, whatever, that's 10 years. If it's life, it's life, whatever. I don't care, but ban these people, arrest these people, point them out and make them look really stupid. Tormenta's signing, Tottenham Hotspur fans might be interested by this one. Keziah Sterling is the signing for South Georgia Tormenta. He is a former England youth international. He was on the books at Tottenham from 15 through 21. Don't think he played at all for the first team. No, he did. I'm sorry. December of 2017, he would have been 19 years old. He's 23 now. Came on as a sub in Champions League against ATL Nicosia. has been loaned out to Sunderland, Doncaster Rovers, Leyton Orient, Southend United, Greenock Morton in his career. 23, and he is coming to Statesboro for South Georgia Tormenta. Fascinating signing. That's not one that I expected to see. I believe he is the first player in USL League One with time in a Premier League club. I think he's probably the first who has played in a UEFA Champions League match.
Yeah.
But really interesting signing, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to him and talk about how it came to be, because I'm intrigued by why Keziah Sterling decides to come to South Georgia Tormenta. Really, really cool. I had a chance to see Tormenta again with a whole bunch of trialists. About half, maybe more than half of the side were trialists against Atlanta United 2 on Saturday. I'm not sure if the broadcast is still up on Twitch. I don't know if they archived those, but I was talking to the crew from the club. A lot of the academy side, they're trying to stream more games on Twitch. I'm hopefully going to be able to jump on and do some commentary on some of these. But Tormenta looked pretty good, and Tormenta handled the twos pressure pretty well, and that's a really good sign. I've hoped, and we've talked about this with lower division clubs, and Tormenta, as good as they've been off the field, I think on the field, they're probably disappointed with where they've been. They looked really good here. I was really impressed with some of the players they've added. This is before we knew about Sterling. They've added, I think, a higher quality of player. Guys who are a little more technical than maybe they've had in the past. And again, you need teams that can do a little bit of both, because there's games where you're going to have more of the possession that you got to make something with it. There's games where you can play a little more direct. You got to be a little more physical. They've generally been a bigger, more physical team. If they can play a little bit too, hey, they're a contender in USL League One if they can keep building and getting to that point under Ian Cameron. I thought the twos, they were very focused on what they wanted to do. That's what they should be doing in preseason games. It was a very young group. It was constantly trying to play out of the back. There were some really good combinations. I thought Vicente Reyes was very good in the first 45. Noah Cobb, absolutely steady. He does not appear to be a teenager the way he plays. Just really confident player. Grant Howard played on the outside in the first half as a fullback, played as a center back in the second half. I thought he was the best player for Atlanta United too. He's an academy player headed to Virginia Tech. What else about it stood out to me? The attacking trio of Firmino he was at Union Omaha last year. He's a New England Revolution Academy product, a Brazilian by birth. Firmino, Mejia, and Mateus. Ton of talent. Really weren't finding the combinations yet.
Yeah.
I thought Robbie Mertz was really good in his role. Brendan Lamb came on in the second half. I thought Lamb was excellent. I thought Efrain Morales was good. I want to see him continue to develop as a 6, because that's where he's going to play. He's not going to be a center back. He's going to be a 6, I think. There was a thought about him turning into a center back as he continued to grow in height, but his game's a 6. So I think that's where they're going to play him. Those are the things that stood out to me. You saw it as well, John. Anything else that stood out to you?
No, I'm right there with you on Grant Howard. And as I've
been raving about him since the U19s. I really like Howard's game.
Yeah. So obviously I came with the big notebook, and
oh boy,
when it came to Howard specifically, I had more notes on Howard in the second half when he was playing as a center back more than I did when he was on the outside. Just his command in there, I was really impressed with what I saw from him. And yet Noah Cobb, once again, right there with you. And I think that the keepers on both sides, in both halves, really, were on display. And I think that for a team in Tormenta who was right there on the edge of the playoff picture and then had a disastrous last 2 months, and you're winless in your last 5, and you finish, I think, 10 points out of the playoff picture, you're looking to turn things around, and you're having to do it. Marco Micheletto was signed to the Columbus Crew organization, so you're trying to find some offense and some catalysts for you going into this season. But no, Tormenta came to play, and I give them absolute full credit for trying to go ahead and just challenge nose-to-nose with Atlanta United too. But yeah, when it came to Atlanta United 2 specifically, I had Howard as a standout, and I had the keepers as standouts as well.
Yeah, Tom, I'd read the same about Firmino. Tom's a New England Revolution fan and said he was a little disappointed that Firmino left. Thought he looked promising. When his name came up, I was like, I know that name. Where do I know the name from? And it was because of really good reviews out of New England. He was good with Revs 2 in 2020, and then they didn't renew him. He was a homegrown signing for New England, went to Union Omaha last year, and now he's in Atlanta. I like the potential with Firmino, Mateus, and Mejia as a front three. That's a very fluid front three. Mateus was the central of the three in the first half. Firmino was the central of the three in the second half. I'm curious to see how that plays out. I'm curious to see how they'd incorporate somebody like Jackson Conway, who I think will get games with that group as well. Does one of them become a 10 in that scenario? I could see that. So I'm very intrigued. Very, very intrigued. Bern, thanks for watching. It's a tough call because, Tormenta didn't have numbers and they had trialists that we weren't talking about because they're on trial and they're not signed to a deal and they didn't want that disclosed, which I get. That's how a lot of teams are in preseason stuff. Not everybody, but a lot of teams. So it made it a little weird in that way. So I tried to find a way to call the game and make it work.
Yep.
It also gave me an opportunity to talk more about what the Atlanta players were doing. So, normally when you're calling a game, you're talking about who's on the ball. If I didn't know who was on the ball for Tormenta, then I had to talk about what the Atlanta player was doing to defend. So it made an interesting setup and kind of way of thinking for me in doing the game. I hope people enjoyed it. Okay, we'll get into some questions here in just a second. We'll wrap up with that. There was a question from Mortal Man about the high school game of the week this week. It will be Wednesday, 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock, Whitewater in Fayetteville hosting Pike County. I don't have the girls' records in front of me. Whitewater and Pike County are both undefeated on the boys' side. Pike County, I believe, is one of the leading scorers in the state on the boys' side. So it should be a really fun one down in Fayetteville. You can listen on our app and on soccerdownhere.net at 6 o'clock for the girls' game, 8 o'clock for the boys' game, Whitewater hosting Pike County. Looking forward to that. Let's get into some questions. Let's jump around here. Burned, I'm with you. I agree with you. Bryce Washington didn't look great with the twos in that game. I thought he was pressing. I thought he was maybe trying a couple things that were unnecessary. Need to keep it simpler at times. Bryce, again, and I think we've talked about this with Jackson. I think Bryce is in the same boat. You're going into year 2 on an MLS deal for both of them. I don't know if they're signed past this or it's options at the end of the second year. It's a big year for both, and I think they both need to have important seasons. And can they? They can't try to do too much, though. They have to be themselves. They have to play their game and continue to improve. And we will see if they do. I thought Bryce did struggle in this. I was a little surprised by that, too, because he's looked pretty good in preseason with the first team. Didn't look good in this. And I thought, actually, the Twos defense got better with Howard as the center back. And Cobb, again, very, very, very good. Really impressed with him. So it happens. It can't be a trend if you want to make the jump and be factoring into the MLS side. But everybody's going to have bad games. It's how you bounce back. And Wednesday, they play the Chattanooga Red Wolves. And I'm not sure if that's going to be streamed yet. I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing any commentary on that. But stay tuned. That might happen. It might just happen because I'm that crazy. Do that Wednesday at noon, I think, and then do stoppage time and then go to Fayetteville and do 2 games. Sure. That's my kind of day. All right. Let's get into these questions after Burns' comment about Washington. Jason Nix, no, Rocco Rios Novo he was on loan for a year from Lanús. Transfer option was not picked up. He is back at Lanús in Argentina with their second team, I believe. He's not factoring into the first team. I don't think he is making rosters with the first team yet. It didn't make sense to buy his contract for millions of dollars. I want to say it was somewhere between 2 and 3 is what was being reported.
Unknown is not.
John, what are you doing?
I was looking up Pike County's numbers, and there was a pop-up video that showed up for some.
Yeah. One day we'll be able to teach you about these things. One day. Let me make sure Rocco's not playing with Lanús at the moment, or not factoring into the bench. Fernando Monetti is the starter there, and no, Rocco was not on the bench in their last Copa de la Liga game. But it didn't make sense to pay a $2 or $3 million transfer when you signed Justin Garces as a homegrown. You also have Vicente Reyes that you have signed to an Atlanta United 2 deal. I really like Reyes. I really think Reyes can end up potentially being Atlanta's homegrown, developed Rocco Rios Novo kind of goalkeeper. A little bit bigger, I believe. I might be wrong on that, but I think Reyes is a little bit bigger, which some people like. That was a complaint about Rocco at times, was he wasn't very tall. Some people get hung up on the height for a goalkeeper. I think Vicente is a little bit taller, but he is as comfortable in playing 40 yards from his own goal with the ball at his feet as Rocco was. So he's the long term. I'm sure there's other guys in the academy to watch as well. Garces is the next one. Dylan Castanera is the next one. And you have Bobby Shuttleworth, who is the veteran who has over 200 starts in MLS, who's the backup to Brad Kazan, who's your starter. So I don't think you needed to spend $2 or $3 million on Rocco. And it's nothing against Rocco. I think it's just a numbers game. But he is at Lanús. Byrne listened to the Vidalia call, said there seemed to be a lot of Byrne said Mexican-American. I do believe that's correct. I don't think it was a different nationality. That was on Toombs County. It does happen in some Metro Atlanta schools. Not sure about clubs or all that. It does happen in some. It happens in certain parts of the state more and more. And in parts of the state that I frankly didn't know. I did not know about a large Latino population in Toombs County. Didn't know about that. Knew about it in Dalton. Knew about it in Gainesville. Called some of those games before. Didn't know it in Toombs. And yeah, it was definitely. And on the girls' side, it is a little more eye-opening to see as many Latinas playing at this level and playing. And it's something that has grown a lot, but it's something that needs to continue to grow. You know, it's a cultural thing. It's maybe not as quite as accepted, maybe not as encouraged. And I hope that continues. I hope that continues to change. I think we're seeing that change in front of our eyes, and I'd love to see more of it. But Toombs County, on the girls' side, Toombs County, I thought was maybe the better team in general. Vidalia was the better organized team.
Right.
Really good defensively. Good goalkeeper. Well structured. They got a goal on a penalty. I thought the freshman for Toombs County, who was playing as a sweeper, which that was fascinating to me, going old school with the way they kind of structured the back line. Super narrow field, so it works. I mean, this was like a 58-yard wide field, just barely wider than the football field, which you're going to find at some high schools. So you don't have much width. You don't need to really focus on width. You can play kind of a diamond in the back with a sweeper. And Nava, the freshman sweeper for Toombs County, she was great, but she's a freshman, and she made a couple of big mistakes that led to penalties. One was saved. It wasn't taken all that well. The other was converted. But, I mean, it would have been 5 or 6-0 if Nava hadn't been there. And that's where, you know, when you get into this, and I see some of the comments about a player's performance, every player at all levels are going to make mistakes, but you have to look at the overall impact. Nava made the biggest mistake that led to a penalty that ended up being the difference. But if she's not there, the score line is completely out of hand. Mm-hmm. She was so good, but made one big mistake that they got punished for. It's a crazy thing about this game. Crazy, crazy thing. Okay, Bart says, of the teams that lost in MLS by 3+ goals, 3 or more, we'll say, which one is most likely to see more score lines this season? Which one is most likely to see more score lines this season? / is the most in actual trouble? Okay, I'm gonna rephrase, Bart. Who was the worst and looks the worst out of the teams that gave up a bunch of goals in MLS? So we're talking about Vancouver, Cincinnati, and Charlotte. I didn't get to see the Vancouver game in anything resembling its entirety. Cincinnati, I saw more of. I watched the Charlotte game closest because we're playing them in a couple weeks.
Right.
And I was listening to the call on WFNZ of my friends Will Pelagic and Jessica Charman, and they were great. It was a lot of fun to listen to that, sync it up with the TV. I was watching games on like a quad box, so I had other games on. I was paying attention to flow, but going into detail, no. I didn't think Charlotte was as bad as the scoreline, but I don't think DC is very good. So that's kind of a tough one to read. Vancouver surprised me in how bad they lost because I don't think they're that bad of a team. Cincinnati shocked me in how bad they lost because I thought they would be better.
Yeah.
The way that they lost, and this is from not watching all 90 minutes of all three games, the way that they lost, I'm most concerned about Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
I'm next most concerned about Vancouver because it really felt out of place. Charlotte, I was already concerned. Nothing really changed. And I think they actually played better than a 3-0 loss. So that's my take. What about you, John?
I'm with you. Cincinnati was 5 goals on 5 shots and included an own goal attributed to Alec Can.
There was one that Can gave up that was on him too. The own goal's a cross that comes in off of him that was weird, but he didn't have a good day. But really, nobody had a good day for Cincy.
No, and that's the one that I'm worried about the most right now. If you want to sit there and say, okay, the one that I'm most concerned about with this opening day, Vancouver's did seem out of place, but they've never been that good on the road in the first place. The number surprised me for Columbus about, the margin of victory. So Vancouver losing, not a surprise. Losing by 4, that's the number that gets with me. DC and Charlotte, I watched a little bit of that one as well, and that the 3-0 scoreline didn't seem like it was apropos to what we were watching. So by default, I guess I'm going to Cincinnati and what they certainly did not do against Austin.
Uncle No Pocket says, what does the starting roster look like with Araujo being injured? It's impossible to say right now, Unc, because I don't know where visa situation gets resolved this week with Almada. I don't know if you get Sosa. I'm not expecting him, but I don't know if you get him back or Ibarra back from green card stuff. The injury that he had in Mexico, but he's away anyway, as Jarrett joins us again. I don't know what the fitness of Marcelina Moreno will be in a week's time. I don't know what the fitness of Brooks Lennon will be in a week's time. I don't have high hopes for Machoke Chol being back anytime soon. Jake Mulroney, I don't know. And that would be another one that could affect it. So it's too early to call. If you went into yesterday and you didn't have Araujo to start, I really wonder what the lineup would have been. Let's say he did the hamstring Saturday and he doesn't play Sunday. I don't know what it would have been at that point. I don't know if Dwyer would have been the choice to start in that moment. Going into this one, if nothing changes, which will not be the case, because, at a minimum, Moreno will have more fitness and Lennon will have more fitness. You might go with Dwyer starting in Colorado. You might go with that to start because it didn't do badly, and this is going to be a different kind of game. You're not going to be under as much pressure from a team in possession like you were with Kansas City. So it might be even easier for Dwyer to play on the wing and play that hybrid role there and go in that direction. My gut feeling is that Moreno will be close enough to start. He's not going to be able to finish. I see no way that happens. But can he get you to halftime and then make a change? I would take that bet. Right now, I would take that bet. Let's see. Rich Ransom wants to know, did we talk about how Minnesota flopped all over the field against Philadelphia? Rich, that's crazy. Philadelphia's never had any flopping that they've done on their own. Did somebody do it to them? Wow. I'm shocked. I didn't get to see it. I was doing the Twos game, Rich, so I have not watched that game back. I hate it for you. I really hate it for you if that's what happened. I can't even stop from laughing. Did either of you guys watch Minnesota flopping all over the field against Philadelphia?
It was a slobber knocker. They were both throwing bodies.
Well, Rich is saying Minnesota flopped all over the field, Jarrett. Were
Everybody
they throwing...
flopped in that game.
Okay. So
Everybody
it wasn't a
flopped.
slobber knocker.
They were throwing bodies around. Like
there
they
was
were
a
knocking each other
universality.
down.
No, hold on. Are they throwing themselves to the ground, or are they throwing opponents to the ground? Because that's a massive difference.
Yes.
Well, it was both.
Okay,
I mean,
that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, there's a lot of physicality in that game, and then when they thought they could get away with it, there's a lot of Wilhelm screams as people go flying to the ground.
Nice.
It was very interesting. Man, Minnesota, like y'all went to a knife fight against somebody who knows what they're doing with a knife. What the hell?
Well, I mean, they got a 1-1 draw. That's a really good result for Minnesota.
That's a great result for Minnesota.
There's nothing wrong with that. Take that in a heartbeat. You get results on the road against the top team, you take it. If you got to fall around to get it done, well, again, Philadelphia's done that to many other teams over the years. So I feel really bad for the Philadelphia Union. I'm sure Jim Curtin was very happy about these developments. Maybe he called people names. Maybe, possibly. Non-talks with a question, going back to the Russia situation. Yeah, we talked about it. The breaking news this morning is that FIFA's announcement yesterday was a horrible mistake, and everybody is pushing this in a different direction. UEFA really seems to be at the front of this. Bild reported that Spartak Moscow would be removed from the Europa League and RB Leipzig would go through to the quarterfinals. Now it is being said that FIFA is going to, depending on the report, and nobody really seems to know just yet, there could be an announcement later today, they're going to either kick Russia out of the qualifiers. And remember, there's also the women's Euros this summer as well that Russia has qualified for. They're going to kick them out of upcoming competitions or suspend them, which doesn't mean that they're necessarily kicked out until you get closer to that competition. I don't know how it gets ruled, but it's not going to be as in between as I think FIFA tried to do yesterday with their announcement that everybody looked at sideways. Like, really? This is what we're doing? Yeah. UEFA has been more aggressive. Looks like UEFA could also announce by the end of the day that their sponsorship with Gazprom is null and void. Manchester United, I think, have they made the announcement, or is it they're in the process of making the announcement about their sponsorship with Aeroflot being null and void? Schalke has made the announcement that their sponsorship not just removed from the shirt, but null and void with Gazprom. There's a difference. I mean, you remove it from the shirt, but if you're still making the money, you're still making the money and all that. So a lot of things happening very fast. If things continue the road they're on, I don't think Russia's part of the World Cup qualifiers when we get to March. I don't. The bigger question is going to be, is Ukraine? And we have to wait and see. Those are two different situations that FIFA can't lump together. They have to separate them and rule on them separately.
Yeah, and the news in and of itself from what we've seen on the weekend is changing very, very quickly on Monday from what we've seen. So we'll see if the procession that we're seeing of all of these governing bodies sitting there and changing their minds and applying a lot of codicils down the line. We'll see if it turns into more concrete stuff down the line, but still have not heard anything from Gianni Infantino. The IOC has come out.
Well, no, we heard yesterday, again, like we're hearing things, but it's changing so fast.
Right.
What FIFA did yesterday was a joke. If you're going to make an announcement, like make a real announcement, don't do what you did yesterday where like you're going to let them play under a different name or it's stupid. Like do something or don't do something. And if you need time to make the right decision and do it, that's fine. Do it. We do need to stop with the judging of timeliness of statements and judging like quality of statements. I want action. I care about that. I don't care if somebody used colorful words in their statement in this situation. Do the right thing. And they should not be participating as things currently stand in any of this.
No.
So take care of it. Or if you need more time to wait to take care of it, or you got to deal with whatever statutes you have because Yes, there are members and there are agreements and there are these things. Get your ducks in a row and take care of it. Don't do what you did yesterday with silly announcements. Bob Williams reports that U.S. Soccer is expected to announce that its teams will not face Russia at any age group. Many federations are making this announcement. I get it. I understand it. I don't think there were any games on the books between U.S. and Russia in any age group in men's or women's soccer. I get making the statement, but it doesn't really change anything. FIFA and UEFA are the ones who have to make the actions, and that's what I'm waiting on. UEFA's been far more active in doing these things, so we will see. But it's going to continue to evolve. So just pay attention as best you can to it. I created a list on Twitter for anybody out there who uses lists. It's something I've started using more and more and more. I created a list. If you go to my profile, you can look at the list that I've created, and I created one just European soccer. It's 226 different accounts of pundits and news organizations from Europe that cover the game. I'm still adding to it. I've created one for South America as well, and CONCACAF and MLS. If you want to go follow that and use that as an update source, that's a pretty decent one. It's got all the main heavyweights. I'm trying to add some of the smaller outlets and smaller nations reporting on that. But it's going to change. It's going to continue to change. So just stay connected to it. Ricky with a question about Atlanta United, and Jarrett, you go first on this. How much of an overreaction is it to say that the next team on Atlanta's schedule that concerns you is New England?
I got to look at the schedule to know that for sure.
Okay, well, we can do that. We have the means. John, you don't, because you might pull up a crazy site again that makes a bunch of noise.
You ain't kidding.
I don't trust you.
Nope.
You're at Colorado on March 5th. You are home to Charlotte on March 13th. You are home to Montreal on March 19th.
That could be tricky.
Yes.
Yeah, that could
Montreal could be tricky.
We are moving forward to Ricky's statement. Then you have the international break. Then you come back April 2nd in D.C. Then you go to Charlotte on April 10th. Then you host Cincinnati on April 16th. Then you go to Miami on April 24th. Then you go to Montreal on April 30th. Then you host Chicago on May 7th. Then you host New England on May 15th. How much of an overreaction is it to say that the next game that is concerning is New England on May 15th?
I think it's a slight one. Montreal.
I think it's a heavy overreaction. I think it's a huge overreaction.
I'm looking to Montreal.
To be honest,
I don't want to go to Montreal. I love going to Montreal. Montreal's a great town. Don't get me wrong, and the Montreal fans are some of the most fun that I've been around. I'd be worried about going to Montreal. Miami will be tough. Like, I don't know if you saw the numbers, but Higuain was like creating chances like he was giving out candy.
Led the league in chances created. Gonzalo Higuain with 7. They didn't score, but it wasn't because of Gonzalo Higuain.
Yeah. Charlotte, you're fine with. Colorado, I think you're going to be fine with.
Probably.
Montreal at home. I mean, Montreal actually did some creative work for a while against Orlando until they just fell apart. That whole game fell apart at the end. Kyoto with the two fists into the not really didn't like rear back and slug Janssen, but just like the two-fisted shove into the chest, and Janssen drops like a bad habit. It was a bad dive. It was also stupid from Kyoto. They baited him into that who's the center back for Orlando? I can see his face laughing at me. Who is very much a proprietor of the dark arts. But they baited Kyoto into it, and then Kyoto took the bait.
Right.
And then Janssen gets sent off for the dumbest second yellow card I've ever seen, but the game was stitched up at that point, whatever. Yeah, Miami might be tricky.
Miami's tricky.
Chicago, I don't know.
Chicago could be tricky. I think instead of going into all the individual ones here, you're on the road in Colorado, D.C., Charlotte, Miami, Montreal before you get to that. All of those are concerning because you're on the road in MLS and anything can happen. Some are more concerning than others. I think going to Miami and going to Montreal are very concerning. DC's just a difficult team to play, just the way that they play. It's not going to be easy. You're going to have to suffer through that. Should be able to handle it because I didn't think DC was very good against Charlotte, but the way that they play, it will take something out of you. So just because of one game against a good team in Kansas City, yes, I think it is a huge overreaction to say that you're not concerned about anything until New England in May. I really do. It's way too early for that in my book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's too early for that, but that's okay. Overreaction Mondays are for that sort of thing. So you're in a good place for that sort of tomfoolery.
Yeah, it is. It is. But yes, I believe that is an overreaction. That is my book.
Emilio's right. Chicago. There's something about playing Chicago that
Yeah, always.
Atlanta just doesn't like. Chicago always just brings out they enter the Avatar state when they play Atlanta. I don't know
Always.
why,
It
but they
makes no sense.
do.
It makes no sense. Jason Nix, little put off by watching Seattle at Lumen Field last night, where you can tell where the football field is and where they extend for soccer. Never felt that way at the Benz, thank goodness. The Benz staff is amazing in terms of dealing with this. First off, I think they've really set the bar high in the way they convert the pitch itself for it. Yesterday, of course, Atlanta gets an advantage because it's a new surface, so there hasn't been any football on it, so you don't have any of that. At times, I think later in a pitch's lifespan, and I don't know why it is right now, unless that is just an older surface in Seattle. At times, you can tell. You can at least tell where the sidelines are in football because that gets stamped down a little bit more, maybe gets discolored a little bit more. But look, in terms of dealing with a surface that is used for multiple sports, I think Mercedes-Benz does it better than anybody. That needs to be the norm, because if they can do it, there's no reason why Seattle can't. I don't think being outside would make it harder for them to do. New England has to do better. They've gone the lazy route at times with having partial football lines. I think that's been kind of frowned upon now again, because I think Atlanta's pushed the bar higher. I do hope that more teams with multi-sport stadiums do a better job of removing the lines from other sports for soccer games. It's not always 100% possible to completely erase it, but the effort has to be there. I also don't get too hung up if it's faint, because I don't know if people get hung up when you can see it in Liga MX games, which you can. I don't think people get too hung up on when you can see rugby lines in England, because you can. Sometimes it happens. I don't know if it happens in the A-League in Australia, but I would guess that it would. It happens. Was it Wembley that you could see the football lines for a long time after they had NFL games there?
UDEP, right there at Spurs Stadium, yeah.
Stadio Azteca, you could see football lines for months after NFL games there. So, yeah, like, it happens everywhere. But on an artificial surface, there has to be the effort put forth on it. And you have to continually replace it. You just do.
Yeah, the surface at Lumen was last replaced in 2019, and before that, 2016.
Wow, that's really older. That's not good for Seattle. They need to.
I would have thought that 3 years would have been your turnover time for these
2 years. No, it's less than 3. I think when you're using it for both, if you're really taking it seriously, I think it's more like 2. I think Portland, who doesn't have as much usage of other sports on it, is 2. I think that's pretty much been the bar in Atlanta as well, is 2 years. 3, and yeah, they haven't replaced it since 19, and they're playing on it now. They could have replaced it in the offseason like Atlanta did. Again, it's outside. Maybe that complicates it. I don't know, but that's surprising.
I would think, yeah, with wear and tear on an outdoor surface that's used.
No, I'm saying maybe you couldn't have replaced it in the winter in Seattle. I don't know why you couldn't, but I'm trying to give them an out, because that doesn't make any sense that it would be that way, because I would think they would want a better surface in. We'll see. A lot of talk about the teams around the league and all of that. Yeah, I in terms of Charlotte and DC, Charlotte did not look like a team that was 3 goals worse than DC. DC didn't look like a team that was 3 goals better than anybody. The way the game played out is the way the game played out. And Charlotte did not look good, but they didn't get blown out by a fellow non-playoff team, in my opinion, either. The way the score line looked is not the way the game played out. They were all right. It's the same issues we talked about. Jordy Reyna's not really a winger for that system. He's not really a winger. Mackenzie Gaines has got promise, but he's young and learning the position. They've got to get things sorted out with Swiderski up top. Paperwork, hopefully he's back this week for them. They're going to struggle against the LA Galaxy. You talk about, now going up a level in competition. That's where I'm concerned about. Charlotte is at home in front of a big crowd, which they'll get a boost from. Chicharito might eat that team alive.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. That's where we're going to find out about Charlotte. I don't think we really learned a ton from a weird game that had some weird goals in it. I think an unfair penalty that was given to DC. If that was the bar that was set, then I think Charlotte should have gotten a penalty for a similar situation. Goal taken away from Charlotte was correct by VAR. That was handled right. Deflected goal was the second one from Estrada. There was all kinds of weird stuff in that game. It was an odd one, but both teams have a lot of room to grow, in my opinion. Let's see what else we got here. Bart said the issue for him was both Charlotte and Cincinnati lost big to teams that I didn't think would be very good. Kind of expected Columbus to be better this season. I didn't think they'd be 4 goals better than Vancouver, though. That surprised me. And yeah, again, like the Charlotte game, I don't think was as lopsided as the scoreline was. Cincinnati was pretty shocking in that it was so lopsided. I thought they would be better. I really did. We'll see. We will see. A lot of praise for, well, no, maybe not. Rich does not like Kansas City and their supporters. Everybody else says that they were pretty good. Man, Rich is fired up after a draw for Philadelphia this week. Rich. Oof.
Wow.
Non-talks. Can Atlanta win it all, Jarrett?
Yes.
Yeah, they can. 100%. They can.
Yeah, they've got the depth. They've got those players that, when it gets to a tight game, you want to have those players like the Josephs of the world, the Marcelina Morenos. You're hoping Almada becomes that guy of, hey, the game is tight, the game's pretty even. We need somebody to put us over the top. We got a couple of those.
Yep. Atlanta has a chance to win it all. Philly has a chance to win it all. NYC has a chance to win it all. That's not gone away because they lost their opener. New England has a chance to win it all. I think out west, Seattle has a chance to win it all. Nashville has a chance to win it all. LAFC has a chance to win it all. LA Galaxy have a chance to win it all. And even those two, I'm still a little concerned, but they have a chance. I don't know if I put Sporting Kansas City in that group. I don't rule them out of it yet. I'm ruling Colorado out of it. I'm not ruling Kansas City out of it yet. I want to see Vujnovic, but I'm skeptical of Kansas City being in that group. I don't think there's anybody else in that group. So 8 teams is where I'm kind of sitting at the moment that can win it all out of 28. That's the beauty of MLS, right? The playoffs bring some of this, the parity, the caps, all those different things. But any of those 8, if they win it at the end, I'm not going to be surprised. That's pretty cool. Atlanta's one of the 8. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I know, Rich. You call it the way you see it. I know. So do I from time to time. It happens. Let's see. All the talk about the flopping. Very, very entertaining. I'm trying to get caught up here as we go. A lot of catching up from different things. Really, man, a lot of comments. I can't catch up. I'm going to scroll on ahead. Dead again, talking about new carpet every 2 to 3 years, new surface. Yeah, I think 2 is where you need to be to have it play well at the end of the 2-year cycle, and not have some of the issues that we're seeing as a turf surface gets older with coloration, but also with the way it plays. That's a big thing. There is talk, Ricky Ricardo, when it comes to Carlos Vela. Taylor Twellman last night said that Vela and LAFC are in contract negotiations Twelman expects to see a deal reached in the coming weeks for an 18 to 24-month extension. Other reporting is saying that Vela is getting ready to go back to Europe, hopefully somewhere near San Sebastian, where his wife is from. So you're getting both. I would not be surprised if there is at least a 6-month extension. I'm sure LAFC is trying to get to that point. I don't know if they get an 18-month extension, so he'd be here for next year. I think they could possibly get 6. But I also would not be surprised if Vela runs it all the way down to June and he is testing the waters. If he's got a deal in Europe that he thinks he can get, I don't think he signs an extension. If he doesn't, I think he does sign an extension. Let's see. And yeah, we've heard all of it. We've heard all of it in terms of extension, no extension, going to Europe, not going to Europe. We heard the Miami thing. Like, everybody has said all of it. So I don't know where it's actually going to fall. We'll see. 24-month extension. Yeah, it kind of puts you in the same boat because it's a midseason thing. But more than anything is you're probably not going to sign him past that anyway. The extra 6 months is just a little bit of a bonus at that stage if he's still playing at this level. It's awkward, but I don't really worry about it too much because I would think they'd probably make a move if they've already decided to move on from him. I think they'd make a move in the winter before that season starts anyway. Just gives you a little more time to do it. That's all. Spain is the most likely if he goes to Europe. Jason Nick says, where do you think he would make more money, Spain or LAFC? I don't know if he'd make more money in Spain at all. I'd actually thoroughly disagree with Dedigan and Ricky there. He's making a lot of money at LAFC. MLS clubs pay pretty nicely for these kind of guys. The salaries are good. I don't think he makes more in Spain. I don't. I think one place that maybe he would make more would be Club America. But I don't think he has any interest in going there. I think maybe the question would be, would he make more at Miami than LAFC or Spain? And it might be Miami. But the salary is not the problem. He's getting paid very handsomely by Los Angeles Football Club. Very, very handsomely. ATL Pilgrim says Atlanta versus Nashville for the Cup. I can absolutely see that. Unk says it was fun watching Moreno run at tired legs. Yeah, it was good to see that explosiveness from him. He looked tired by the end of stoppage time. I mean, 20 minutes. And if his first day of real team training was the day before a game, which isn't an intense session, I get it. He should look tired. But yeah, Marcelina Moreno is just fun to watch in general in my book. Bart's got 10 teams that could win it all this season. I'd be curious to hear who your other 2 are or if you have other differences. Perfect Tommy. I also like fired up Rich Ransom. It's fun. I like to spar with Rich from time to time when it comes to his and your, as Tommy would say, beloved Philadelphia Union. It's very entertaining.
Sternum poking is always fun.
Yes, it is. Mortal Man says, if I were to tailgate for a game, where would I go? I mean, I would bounce around. I think, and Jarrett, you can speak to this because you've had probably more tailgating experience than John or I have for Atlanta United games. I think bouncing around in general from a tailgate is what's fun. Like, if I'm with a group of friends, then it's a different conversation entirely, and we're tailgating together as a group. But at something like this, I'll bounce around to all the supporters, bounce around like through some of the lots and, maybe carry a cooler and give beers away and also get drinks and just enjoy the entire tailgating scene rather than just be in one place.
Yeah, it's fun if you're not tied down into a place in any tailgate situation, really, just to kind of wander around. You'll run into friends you didn't expect to see, that sort of thing. Talk to people, play games. Everyone has their own cornhole setup, and sometimes they'll have like the little soccer, volleyball setups. Whatever, music, players, whatever. Everyone does their own thing, and it's very fun to see the little communities build out there. I advise just walking around and introducing yourself to people.
Yeah, I mean, when you go to any kind of big event, that's definitely fun to do. Falcons tailgating scene is great. Any college tailgating scene, yeah, walk through, like get a sense of all of it, get a feel of all of it. It's pretty cool. Tom, I'm with you. I don't know how anyone at LAFC agreed to, at where Vela is in his career right now, be able to be out of contract in the summer. In 2 years, I'm not as concerned about it because I think you're probably making the decision the year before what you're going to do. Now, as important as he is and where he is in his career, I don't know how you let that get to that point and not do it sooner. That shocks me. We'll see. I don't know. We will see. It's going to be very funny if we get a new test of, well, he's out of contract in the summer and he's a free agent. How does that work for MLS stuff? It should. I mean, I guess if LAFC makes an offer, then they would keep his rights, which would be awkward. But if he is a free agent, which he should be, he would be at the end of a season, so he would qualify, then Miami should just be able to sign him as a free agent in the summer window, right?
Yeah, you would think.
I mean, it's never happened, so I don't know. I would think.
Yeah.
And that would be wild. And who knows? We'll see. Maybe we get that tested.
Move.
That would be highly entertaining. Let's see. But yeah, a lot of people are saying visit all the groups. Yeah, that's what I would say about tailgating for sure. Is go check them all out. But even go to some of the other lots too. There's just a ton of different things. It's just fun. I like in a tailgating situation going and talking everywhere. Dead again started the Vela to Atlanta conversation. You'd have to get rid of one of Joseph or Araujo or Almada. So I'm going to go with no on that because I don't see that happening. But that's how it would go. Yes. Vela was great this weekend. I mean, there's no way around it. The SofaScore team of the weekend, again, not an exact thing here because SofaScore does it based off stats. I pulled the 3 defenders, the 4 midfielders, and the 3 forwards that played in those positions on the weekend and a goalkeeper. And the SofaScore team of the weekend, at least according to SDH, would be Bill Hamid in goal, Nick Lima of Austin, Marcelo Silva of RSL, and Brandon Bai of New England as your defenders. Carlos Heel, Sebastian Giroussi, Robin Lod, and Lucas Zelarayan as the midfielders. Michael Estrada, Cecilio Dominguez, and Carlos Vela as your forwards. They had the highest ratings according to SofaScore. If you're actually making a real team out of it, then you got to pick a formation and you got to pick right backs and left backs and holding midfielders and all that. These are just the highest rated players in their position groups. Out of that, obviously Vela with a hat trick, player of the weekend. Zelarayan was really good for Columbus. Brandon Bai with a goal for New England. That's what gets him into this. Hamid had a clean sheet. Estrada had a penalty and a deflected goal. Dominguez had 2 goals for Austin. Robin Lod is a player that I think flies under the radar a lot in this league. He is a very good one for Minnesota. And as good as Reynoso is for Minnesota at being that playmaker, somebody else has got to step up with him because he can't carry everything for them. And I don't think Luis Amaria carries everything for them. Lod has got to be better. Tom, again, as I said, yes, he scored. That's why he has the higher score. I'm not going back through every game. I just do not have the time. I wish I did. He got a goal. That's why he's on the list. That's how these things work. You know, if you watch and you're a New England fan, said he played okay. Responsible for the first Portland goal, kept the player on side. I like Brandon Bai a lot. I think at times he gets harshly criticized. I think he's one of the better right backs in the league. I do. I'm not picking it. If you guys can hate on my takes all the time out there in Twitter land on the Bird app, but this is SofaScore's ratings. I'm just relaying it to you. That's all. And yeah, it's heavily rated towards goals and chances created, all that kind of stuff. No, Jason Nix. I did not watch every minute of every game while working to broadcast, not just one game, but 2 games on Friday, do a show at a brewery on Thursday, drive to Vidalia, do the 2 games on Friday, drive back, drop a bag off, go to the training ground, do the 2s game, then come back and try to watch games and prepare, and then do a game yesterday. No, I didn't get to watch all.
You have yet to figure out how to clone yourself to get all the info.
No, I have done a lot of prep, but yes, I have not watched every game from the weekend. I know I'm a slacker. It was a fun weekend. I love this time of year. I love we're back in season. I love talking about all of these games and catching up on everything. But yeah, like it's why I'm not saying that Atlanta's not going to have a challenge until New England. You got to see how these teams evolve a little bit early on. Charlotte should get better. DC will get better. Everybody should get better. If they don't get better, then they've got a problem at the coach. And they got to figure that out. Everybody should improve. Atlanta should improve too. Everybody's going to have injuries that pop up. How long is Arusha going to be out? How much does that affect it? Well, we'll find out. But nothing's guaranteed right now. Nothing at all. So that's why an overreaction Monday to start the season can be full of overreactions. That's okay. Might want to temper them to a degree. Dead again asked about the twos call, said I didn't expect it. Was that planned? Loosely. Wasn't sure if it would come to fruition. I think at first it was just going to be streamed and on Twitch, as some of the Academy games have been, and timing worked out to be able to do it. And I'd seen one of the twos scrimmages behind closed doors. I knew kind of who was working into that group, and then with guys moving from the first team down to the second team and doing all of the preseason for the first team, I knew what it would look like once I saw the list. So pretty easy to jump into that and do it. So, yeah. Alex Bassine says, the old I worked 5 games in 24 hours excuse. I did not work 5 games in 24 hours. I worked 4 games in 72 hours. I'll take that.
Yeah.
I have never done 5 games in 24 hours. I've done 4. I've done 4 high school state championship games in 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you tried to combine it and get weird with how you define the 24 hours in terms of where you cut it, I don't think I get 5 in any form. I think the best one that I did like that is I did Atlanta in Vancouver on Wednesday night, flew back home overnight, slept for a couple hours, drove to Macon and did 2 high school state championship games. So I did 3 in 24 hours, but included a cross-country flight in it.
Yes.
And 1 game was not in the United States. That's the best one I think I've pulled like that. That was pretty impressive. Uncle, we can talk again about how good Andrew Gutman was. We talked early on. Jarrett, you were very impressed with Andrew Gutman, as was I. He was our player of the game on radio. 6 tackles, 1. He threw himself into a shot like a hockey player would on one.
It was
play.
hilarious.
He was great. He was great.
Yeah, that was absolutely hilarious because it was a hockey player move.
It was.
He just threw the body in there and then gets up and wins the ball,
mm-hmm.
and then clears it out and starts things going the other way. Man, Andrew Gutman was really good, and it's going to be very interesting this year if he continues to build on that performance, where they pick their spots for a Caleb Wiley. Now, let me preface that by saying you're in no hurry with Caleb Wiley. He's 17 years old. He doesn't have to play a ton this year. I would imagine Caleb Wiley sees a lot of times with the twos, especially on games that don't conflict on the schedule. But, man.
I'm not so sure of that one.
Really?
I'm really not. I think he's going to be on the bench. I think he's going to be a guy who's used late in games.
Oh, yeah. I'm saying when the schedule doesn't conflict, I think he's going to play with the twos a lot.
But there's not much of that. That's the thing. I think he's in a different spot. And I didn't expect this. I really didn't. I thought he would play 20 games with the twos this year.
Yeah.
I don't know if he plays more than 5. And look, it's super early. Overreaction day. That's what we're doing, right? During preseason, I think he's been used more and more. And I think he's going to be a guy that even when he's not starting, he's going to be getting on the field in MLS games. And that's going to keep him, like if the twos play on Saturday, the first team plays on Sunday, he's not going to play for the twos because he might play for the first team.
Right.
I think where he might play for the twos is during like international breaks, maybe if he just hasn't gotten into a game for a period of time. But I think Pineda really likes Caleb Wiley, and I would not be surprised to see him start a few games either.
We'll have to see how it breaks out. He's been very, very good. Like I said, you're in no hurry with him because even if you were in a hurry with him, like Andrew Goodman, he wants to keep doing that. Andrew Goodman can hang out on the left back role as long as he wants for the foreseeable, next couple of years. I mean,
you got to plan ahead, and
you
some
do.
conversation about talking about George Bello in a situation. I think look, we do this all the time, right? Where it's like this guy's better than this guy. It's not always that simple. Goodman's different. He plays different than George Bello did. He has things that he's better than George Bello at. Bello has things that he's better than Goodman at. They're different players, but it's not as simple as even that, because how they fit in the team is different. How the other players around them interact is different. Anytime you make a change, that stuff changes. Gutman is a really good fit right now for this group. I think George Bello would be too. They're different personalities. Gutman, I think here's the biggest difference for me. I think some of the plays that Gutman made yesterday that I noticed got a reaction out of the crowd, you just hear it, are plays that George Bello makes, but maybe at times makes them a little bit smoother. I think defensively, Bello was very smooth in his defending. Gutman feels a little scrappier at times. And look, I think we react to scrappiness a little bit more. And Bello, maybe at times, just because he took care of business a little more quietly, didn't get the reaction that maybe he should have. And it happens. It's just how we're built as humans. You see somebody, it looks like they're giving it their all. They're showing grit. We love that stuff, right?
Yep. Gritty. Yeah.
It's part of the deal. So I think both would be good. It's not about who's better. It's not about any of that. I think Andrew Gutman, when you want to get into planning ahead, go all the way back to Cincinnati not getting a permanent deal done for him with Celtic. It was an opportunity for Atlanta to jump in and get his MLS rights. They did. They then got a deal done with Celtic on a permanent basis because he wasn't going to get a work permit in Scotland, right, Jarrett?
I think that was it. If that wasn't it, I have so many questions about did Red Bulls unlock? Did Red Bulls and Cincinnati kind of unlock this guy?
No.
Or
I
has
don't think that's it.
Did they? I mean, I'm wondering. I have questions for Celtic.
I don't think he could get a work permit. I think that's all it was.
I would think that's it because, man, the dude could go tear up Scotland.
Yeah, I think it was the work permit because he had no national team experience. He had very little pro experience.
It could not have been talent. It could have been fit with. It could have been fit with Neil Lennon's teams, but
it could have. But it was after the 20 season where he was on loan again with Cincinnati. I think it was an 18-month loan, if I remember correctly, because it was the second half of 2019. And then all of 20. And he played, I don't have it in front of me, 25 games or so for Cincinnati over that time frame. So I don't think he would have gotten a work permit. And if I remember correctly, that was the issue. So Atlanta jumped in when Cincinnati didn't do the permanent deal, and that meant they declined his option. And then he was available. If I remember right, it was a waiver draft, and Atlanta traded up to get the spot and then picked his rights. And I remember having the conversation with so many people like, well, why do you do this? It was long-term planning. And it was all about George Bello was going to go to Europe at some point. And you go back to the Bello conversation this offseason. I think you can read between the lines and see that it was pretty much the intention all along that at the end of the 21 season, Bello was going to go to Europe. Okay. Gutman had the 21 season where he was under an Atlanta United contract, but you didn't want to affect Bello's move to Europe and ability and time and interest and all of that. So you loan him to the New York Red Bulls, where he plays. He played 22 games, started 19, if I remember correctly. I think he had a goal and 2 assists, or 2 goals and 1 assist, if I remember my numbers correctly. Okay. And And he got time, and he didn't take time away from Bello. And then that meant Bello got the deal to go to the Bundesliga. Club brought in the money for him, and Gutmann comes in with a number of games under his belt to where he can walk in and be the starter. And you don't have to rush Caleb Wiley. And you still have Mikey Ambrose. So you're in a really good spot. And that's where I think at times we look at like roster moves. Why'd you go get Gutmann? Why'd you trade allocation money? That's stupid. Nuh-uh. Like, I don't know what else to say. No, it wasn't, because that's why. That's stupid. Why do you sign Dom Dwyer? Well, you saw why yesterday.
Yes.
Sometimes there are fixes, and Jarrett, you mentioned it earlier, going out and getting a midseason acquisition like a Marcello last year. I loved it at the time. You're seeing now why I think he's a starting level guy in MLS, in my opinion, in the right system. I don't think that's here, because I think there's better players in front of him. But when you need him, he can deliver because he's got quality. You go and sign Dom Dwyer, as a free agent at the time you did. You have to be able to make those moves when they happen. But you also have to plan long-term development. You moved Greg Garza to open space for Bello. You move Bello to eventually open space for Wiley, but you need a bridge. It's Andrew Gutmann right now. Okay. That's what you do. Center back, we've talked about it. George Campbell has pushed into that now. That made exposing Anton Walks in the expansion draft not something you wanted to do, but something you could do, because George Campbell is ready to step up into that. You got to plan short term, or actually take that back. You got to plan long term with your roster, but you got to react to short term needs when they pop up.
No, and I think that's the key, is that you have to think of this as two tracks. You have to think of how you're going to do things in the season, but at the same time work your long-term development so you can have succession plans. And yes, if that means bringing in depth pieces that will help you out, like an Amar Sejdic, then it's all part of that work. And then you see, regrettably, instances like what happened yesterday with Luis Araujo, why you make these plans, why you're looking at veterans to fill in spaces that you think will work in your particular systems. You're working two separate tracks simultaneously, and you have to do that to continue to be successful, so you're not caught if something happens that you have to react to. And I think that this has been part of what Atlanta United's DNA in their front office has been this entire time, is that they're thinking in two tracks simultaneously. They're not waiting for an event to happen before they have to act. And I think that that's key for all successful teams, is that they're preparing on a bunch of different levels. In case one thing happens, there's an if-then, as opposed to an oh crap moment, and then you have to try to figure something out.
Jarrett, thoughts on this before we try to wrap up?
I mean, you're always planning ahead. You're always thinking about two steps down the line. This is a chess game. You're not thinking about the move you're making. You're thinking about the moves you're making down the road. You're thinking about Caleb Wiley and what he can become for the first team, and then you're already planning, okay, who is next in that line? And you're starting to see, if you go watch the Twos games, go watch those scrimmages against the teams like Tormenta, where Trialist 8 versus gets an assist off Trialist 5's goal, which is my favorite gimmick. And keep doing it, Tormenta. Please, God, keep doing it. But you're already starting to see those next steps, and you're going to start to see those next steps at every position. They're looking at the 13, 14-year-olds. I talked about this last night with the academy. Like, when you're doing an academy, it's like planting a tree that takes a long time to grow. You're not going to see the fruit off that tree real quick. It doesn't just pop out of the ground and start producing fruit. You have to let it grow, and that meant starting it back in 2016, 2015 era of putting things in place when Caleb Wiley was still, a young pup. But now here you are in 2022, and you're starting to see more and more of the benefit from it. It doesn't happen instantly, but it will start to bear fruit, and you're really seeing it break the ground. And you want to do a side by side. Go look at Minnesota and their setup versus what Atlanta has right now as far as productivity coming out of their academy.
What setup?
Yes, that's my point. Thank you.
I was helping.
Yeah, I know.
Sometimes I tossed it off the backboard,
and there you go.
Sometimes I get those. Sometimes. Usually not. I have bad takes, I hear. But that one I think I got. We talked about that in the full-time report. It's you look at academy development and you look at homegrown development and you look at what has been going on here. Maybe at times we take it for granted. There's not a lot of teams doing it to this level. Philadelphia's one. Philadelphia's had more time to do it. They had some missteps early. A lot of people do. Look, I mean, even Barcelona, who's been great at youth development, has gotten it wrong in different generations. It's just there's no exact science to it, but you do have to have a plan, and you do have to, when guys are ready, push them through and give them time. And sometimes that's going to be in a position that is not their best. I mean, no, Caleb Wiley is not a winger. No, he's not a winger. He's a left back. But right now, can he help you on the wing in a way? Yeah, he can. He did. He got a goal. Yes. But early on, that's how kids have to get their breaks, right? They got to get on the field. And you're going to play Andrew Gutman because he gives you a better chance to win. And you might use Caleb Wiley in some moments because of his pace as a winger. Cool. Paid off yesterday. Maybe it'll pay off again another time. It's just how it goes. And we see it all the time. Again, it's about the positions don't really, limit you. Don't get hung up on it too much because you're going to see guys move around a little bit. We got a little bit of this.
Oh my days. Ha ha ha.
LA Galaxy are ready to sign Sergio Ramos and have already initiated contact with the Spaniards' representatives, according to Deadline Day Live on Twitter. Okay. He's barely played for PSG. He might have. He's got a red card, so he's played a little bit. I remember that. I don't know if he's got more than 100 minutes played for PSG this season. He's had awful injuries for the last 2 years. I don't really see him signing with the LA Galaxy. That feels like one of those moves out of like 2012 European tabloids.
Yeah,
maybe they recycled one to try to get some clicks today. I'm not buying that. Not buying that one. That's a little ridiculous. Okay. Last run through comments on the Twitch pitch as I can. I don't think Bello does have defensive holes at the Bundesliga level, Burned. I think he can fix those. You just got to play. You got to get the experience. It's unfair to expect him to be the finished product at his age and from playing the games he's played in MLS. Everybody's got holes and work to do. I think defensively, I'm better with him defensively than offensively, to be honest. I think he has to impact games in the final third more to be as elite as I think he can be, which is a national team starter. But he's got more holes offensively than defensively for me. Colonel, dead on, and there's a couple things in this. Gutman's background is really interesting. He won the Herman Award at Indiana. It's like the Heisman Trophy in college soccer. Signed to Celtic. He didn't want to sign with the Chicago Fire, who he could have signed with as a homegrown. That was during the period of time where young players were not well liked in Chicago because they didn't plan ahead at all, and they ran all their good young players out of town. How'd that work for Chicago, by the way? Yep. Yeah, he wanted no part of it. So that he was gone. He ran away. Signed to Celtic, even though he couldn't get a work permit, which shows you, I think, how desperate he was to not be in Chicago. And then he was going to be loaned to Nashville in 2019, if you remember correctly. And that move got blocked because Nashville was coming into MLS the next year. And MLS did not allow that to happen for some dumb reason. It was really dumb. He was loaned to the Charlotte Independence for 6 months in 2019, then was loaned to Cincinnati for 18 months. And then Cincinnati didn't get the deal done. Atlanta got him in waivers. Atlanta gets the deal done with Celtic. And then they loaned him to Red Bulls. And now he's here. That's an interesting pathway, but it's worked out. Let's see. Some talk about Ethan Horvath being linked to a move to the New England Revolution to replace Matt Turner in the summer. Yes, that makes sense for everybody involved. I'm good with all of that. Let's see here. ATL Pilgrim says, I think a lot of the conversation has to do with this team being grittier and tougher in previous years or than previous years. That's a hard thing to quantify. I think Gutman, the way he plays, has a grittier feel to it. Again, hard to quantify. Alonso, we know his grittiness from his history in the league. I don't think it's fair to say that teams in the past were not gritty. Eric Rametti would like to have a word. Leandro Gonzalez Perez would have a lot of words. He likes to say a lot of things to referees and people who would dispute him. So that would definitely come up. Jeff Lorenowitz would have a few words as well. So, okay. There are quite a few gritty guys in the past. It's just the way it looks right now. It's okay. It's one game. It's all good. People agree with that though. So again, I'm probably wrong here as it usually goes. Let's see. Burns could see Wiley as a left center back before you could see him as a winger. I'll go the other way. I think his pace just makes him somebody who can affect the game from a wing position. But I think he is a left back. I think Bello's weird in his development. Like Bello initially was more impactful offensively than defensively. I thought his defending really improved in 2020 throughout the year. Tackling got much better. Positioning got much better. And his offense kind of stagnated. Wiley, I think, is a better defender at the same age than Bello was. I think Wiley's faster, but I think at this age, Bello was probably better in the attack than Wiley is. But Wiley's got that speed that is just sometimes you don't have to be very good in the attack if you can just outrun everybody, right? So I think Wiley is truly a left back, but he might play some as a winger right now because it gets him on the field, and his pace is a game breaker. I totally agree, Ricky, that Dom Dwyer was a great interview on the Full-Time Report. He was fun. He was good stuff. Dom's a good guy. I mean, look, he played for Orlando and he scored a lot of goals, had a hat trick at the Benz in the first big, huge crowd game in 2017. People are going to hold that against him. He's a player who will absolutely get under your skin on the field, and he thrives on that. He's a guy that if he's on the opposition, you don't like, but he's a guy that in that locker room is very well liked. Good guy. Absolutely good guy. So yeah, it's a good addition. I thought it was a good addition, even if he didn't score yesterday, but that's cherry on top. I said 3 goals.
I was going to say, yeah. What were your numbers?
I said 5. You're dancing in the streets. I said 3 is what you're probably looking for out
3
of it.
goals, 4 yellows. Is that what you said?
If he gets that, that's fine. I said that was fine. If he gets 3 goals this season, I'm happy. If he gets more than that, I'm happy, or I'm wondering why he's playing so much to get more than that. And is there something wrong as to why he's getting that time? That's all. Dead again. Yeah, I mean, the Orlando move at the time when he went to Orlando, you got to remember the Kansas City part of it. Kansas City was transitioning from a 4-3-3 direct team to what they are now, a possession-based team. And that wasn't the best fit for Dwyer at that time. Orlando offered a bunch of allocation money, and Kansas City made the deal. They never really replaced him either very well for a long time until they got Alan Pulido. So it wasn't all sunshine and flowers on the Kansas City part. He produced at the beginning for Orlando, but that team had a lot of issues over the years. I mean, just think to the cavalcade of coaches and comments and Justin Merrim showing up and not knowing where he's supposed to play and what he's supposed to do under Jason Kreis, which made no sense whatsoever, that somebody who was known for being well organized had a very disorganized team. All that stuff affects you. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. But initially, it made a lot of sense for everybody involved. He was great for Kansas City back in the day. And if he can be a player that helps you off the bench for Atlanta and can be a little bit of a utility attacker, great. That's more than I thought. I was thinking he was going to be a guy who would spell Joseph from time to time. If he can give you a little bit more than that, that's amazing. 4-card Walks was hurt, had a hamstring. That's why he didn't play for Charlotte. Byrne says there was a Twos game where they were trailing in. They pushed McFadden up to right wing, played a back 3 with Wiley as the left center back. Looked great because he can cover so much ground. Yeah, that was situational. But yeah, I mean, he's a smart player. He could probably do it. I think he's a left back. No question about it. He'll play on the wing because he's got speed. It's not going to be a 3-hour show, Domer. Yeah, you mentioned it. We're leaving in a minute. I'm trying to get to everybody's comments as best as I can, and I'm also probably overreacting to trying to get to everybody's comments. Overreaction Monday. What can we do? Jason Nix, I wonder how if Nashville's first 8 games being on the road will affect their season. New stadium opening in May, actually, right at the beginning of May. I think Atlanta's game there is game 2. Every single time, and I'm trying to make sure this didn't get thrown out in some of the weirdness we've had the last couple of years, but I don't think it did. Every single time in league history that a team has had an extended road trip to start a season, they've made the playoffs. So it will have a short-term effect while they're on the road, although it didn't seem to hurt them against Seattle. But then you get the bounce of having a bunch of home games later in the season that you wouldn't normally have in a normal flow. So it's a trade-off. It hasn't kept anybody from making the playoffs. We'll see what kind of position it puts them in terms of where they finish. I think the way they play, they'll be fine. I'm not worried about it. Let's see. Byrne loves that Atlanta gives opportunities to young players. Favorite thing about the club, 100%. You got to play kids, and everybody's done that. Gabriel Heinze wanted to play the kids, and he was very clear. And I think it's something to keep in mind. It's look, he said some things I think behind closed doors that were a problem, but some of the comments he made publicly were dead on. And the one that he said about, you guys are going to ask me, talking to the media, to play young players. I'm paraphrasing. And you're going to ask me to play them. And then you're going to criticize me for playing them when they don't perform well. But I'm going to play them because when they deserve it, they're going to play. He was dead on. Like Campbell, again, as we saw earlier in the conversation, some people think he's a national team player because of what you saw yesterday. Some people said he wasn't good yesterday. Truth is in somewhere in between. He made some mistakes. He's a young player. You got to play him. You can't crush him for making those mistakes. You got to continue to play him. If he keeps making the same mistakes, it's a problem. You do have to talk about the mistakes when they are game-changing mistakes. In Campbell's case, they weren't. Go back to Jackson Conway last year against Philadelphia. He made a big mistake in going to Jack Elliott instead of trailing Jacob Glesnes. Glesnes hits a bomb. You lose points in that game. That's a mistake that affected the game. That happens. He made a decision later in the year in a very similar situation that I will always remember, that he got it right. And he picked the right person to track and defend and press. He learned. That's what you want. Young players are going to make mistakes. It's okay. I like that Atlanta gives them opportunities to do it. I like that they throw George Bello in 2018 and he scores a goal against New England. I like that they throw Caleb Wiley in here and he scores a goal. I like that they threw George Campbell in moments. In 2020, I like that you give these guys opportunities. You have to. If you're going to develop talent, you have to let them go. You have to let them go. Carmona would argue with you on the grittiness conversation too, right, Jared? I'm surprised you didn't yell at me for not mentioning him.
No, he's absolutely part of that conversation. Remember, Carlos Carmona got the first red card in Atlanta United's history.
He did. He didn't get the first yellow, though. Joseph did, which is a great trivia question that nobody gets right anytime. It's great. Love Alonso in the middle. Absolutely, Uncle. Great addition. And especially with Sosa's sports hernia surgery, to be able to play the minutes early on. Hugely, hugely critical. How many more seasons does he have in him? I don't know. He plays like he did yesterday. He's got plenty of time in him, but Father Time's undefeated and will catch up, and sometimes catches up very fast, no matter how well you can outrun him. My guess is at this level too. But if you manage his minutes, maybe you get a little bit longer. That takes him to 39. He's incredibly fit. So, I mean, I'm not betting against him for 2 to be able to be a contributor, not a starter for 34, but a contributor for 2 more years where he's playing about 1,500 minutes. Okay. I can buy that. Beyond that, I think it's hard. Would love to see him transition into being a coach. If that's here, if that's somewhere else, would love to see that. Would absolutely love to see it. I hope Dom knows that he's welcome here and is loved. I think he did a great job yesterday to endear himself to Atlanta United fans. So that was awesome. Dom and Rob were teammates, Coco, at Orlando City, in USL. So yeah, I think that helps. That definitely helps with understanding. I think for the club side of things, what kind of individual you're thinking about signing when his name comes up in free agency, and you're thinking about what you want to do. Let's see. Yeah, Gustavo, the great test is for Dwyer to score against Orlando. That would be wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Linners and Wozers, what's pushing the Rapids back from getting a DP number 9? Just wanting to cut the check.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's scouting. I don't know if they've tried and they haven't been able to get somebody. I don't know if it's just willingness to cut a check. I don't know. But it's hurting them, and it's why they're not as good as they should be. Because they have a good group outside of not having a top number 9. They don't even have to go get a $15 million number 9. Go get a $3 million number 9. And Diego Rubio's okay. But for a team that can win the West, as they did in the regular season last year, they need more than that. They need a 15-goal scorer. And they don't have one. And until they get one, they're not going to be a top team in the West again. I think the West has gotten better. So I wish I knew what was keeping them from it, but it's a must. It is a must. Go to Brazil, go to Ecuador, go somewhere and find a number 9 that you can bring in that you could expect to get you around 15 goals. And I think then you're talking about a team that would be a possible MLS Cup winner. Right now, nope. Gustavo says the problem is not playing with players from the academy, but to do it in an orderly manner. I don't want another problem like Goslin's who couldn't develop. It's different things, though, Gustavo. Goslin never earned the time. And some of it was injury, but he never earned the time. I think what you're seeing from Atlanta is when guys earn the time, they get the time. And that's good. And if they then continue to earn more time, they get more time. And that's where you want to be. You're not just playing a guy, because Goslin never played in MLS. You know, you're not just playing somebody because they're young. Andrew Carlton, they tried to bring along slowly and give him more and more. And it got to a point where he didn't earn more and more. And that's why he's not there anymore. Bello, you gave him some. DeBoer believed in him a lot, gave him a start in CONCACAF, and he got hurt. And then when he got healthy, they gave him more and more. Campbell, more and more and more every time because he's earning more and more and more. I think Wiley will be another one like that just earns more and more and more. Tyler Wolf has earned more and more and more. So that's the way you go. They've got to earn it too. That's the hardest part about this. You can see an incredibly talented kid at 15 years old, and they might not be better than they are at 15. They might not have the psychological makeup to make the jump. They might not have the drive to make the jump. They might have an injury that affects them, then they don't make the jump. It's impossible to predict which talented kid is going to be the next big thing. It's impossible because there's so many factors that create problems and roadblocks. You got to give opportunities for them to grow. And I think Atlanta's done a good job of that. Unk says 2 goals from subbed in players as well. You have to give Pineda credit there. Didn't have much of a choice in subbing in Dwyer. You had to sub somebody, but you could have brought in Wiley there. I think bringing on Dwyer was the one at that time. More than anything, just adjusting to the way the game played out is where I give Pineda a lot of credit. And I think reinforcing it at halftime. They got better in terms of control in the second half. You give up a goal off a set piece. You didn't crumble. You didn't suffer at all, really. Bounced back immediately. You didn't make big changes at halftime because the team was well prepared and they adjusted to what the game brought them really well. Hosechi's positioning, adjusting on the fly was really impressive. I'm sure there was instruction from the technical area, but the players still got to do it. Can't call a timeout and correct it. And Hosechi was great in that regard. Sacrificed his game a bit for the team to be able to cover for the right side a little bit more defensively. Still a problem because Kansas City created stuff from that side, but not as big of a problem as it could have been. Really impressive all the way around. The preparation is what impresses me the most. And I think that's where Gonzalo Pineda is incredibly thorough. You got plan B's and C's and D's and E's and F's in games because of what can happen. Let's see. Trying to see if there's anything else that we haven't really touched on. Yeah, I think GH, like the development of the academy players over time has improved because it does when you have a club that's around for more than 1 or 2 years, and now you're going into year 6, and the academy will be going into year 7 in the summer. You have more track record. You have more history. You've learned from mistakes. You've learned from things that you wish you had done differently, even if it's not a mistake. They've evolved, and it's shocking. And Jarrett, you mentioned Minnesota a lot, and I'm with you because it's frustrating. Minnesota has went the other way with how they've done with their academy, and they haven't added to it and learned and grown. They've just really made it an afterthought, whereas Atlanta has learned and has grown and has done new things over the years to get more out of what was already a good academy.
Yeah, you're constantly working on it. To cross the parallels here with sports, think about academies sometimes like you're building a college dynasty in football. Once you build it up, if you stop building it, bad things will happen. You have to constantly work on it, and you have to constantly be adjusting, constantly be recruiting, constantly be trying to become better. You can't ever settle into, okay, we're good. That's where things will start to slip. They might not slip today, but they might slip in 2 or 3 years. It is a constant work, and it is a constant and sometimes thankless job for the people who run the academies, because they're not the ones on TV getting talked about all the time. They're doing a lot of long hours and doing a lot of work, and even when it pays off, they're right back to the grind.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the academy coming through is you can't control everything. Sometimes you just get a generation that comes through that doesn't happen for them. Sometimes in a certain position group, it doesn't happen for them. Sometimes you just have bad luck. Sometimes injuries, you can't ever control it. A kid might, tear an ACL at 14. He might have been the guy that you thought would be the starting right winger in 5 years. Tears an ACL and he's not the same player after that. Things happen. You never know. You have to continually be working on it. Last one from Gustavo. The problem with Carlton and Gosselin, to name a few, is that they were in the academy when Atlanta United was starting its franchise. Now it's a different story. That's part of it for sure, because you've learned. I think the bigger thing that you're seeing, especially with the twos, is the academy kids now who come into Atlanta United 2 are academy kids who, from 10 to 11 years old, they've known nothing other than Atlanta United. It's a different environment. If you were coming in as a U17 or U19 in that first academy run, you had not grown up in a professional development system. And for all the wonderful work that clubs do across the metro area and across the country, if you're not in a professional club, you're not developing players in a professional way. You can't. You don't have the resources. You're not built that way. You're trying to get kids to college. You're trying to win state cups. You're doing those things more than, all right, this kid might make 5 mistakes in this game, but he also might win me an MLS Cup, so I'm going to play him, and we're going to learn from those mistakes, and we're going to work on it. If you're at a non-pro club, you're going to say, well, no, that kid's going to cost me winning this trophy, which is going to help me recruit more talent, which is going to help bring in more money. So, no, that kid's not going to play in that position, or I'm not going to play in this way where he might make those mistakes. So it's a different mindset. The kids who are coming through, and you looked at the bench for the twos on Saturday in a friendly, you had Alan Carlton on that. Alan has been in the academy from day one. So he's grown up in a professional environment. His brother didn't. And that's just real. It just happens. Every person is different, even from the same family. So we'll see what Alan can turn into when he gets that opportunity. He's played some with the U19s. I've heard good things about his game. He could be somebody who plays for the twos this year. There was a 15-year-old who was on the bench who is somebody that they're very high on. Okay, let's see if he can continue to develop. Hey, Caleb Wiley debuted at 15 with the twos. Let's see if the next one can. But those are kids who started in the academy from after their initial foundation. And that's where the local clubs are so important. If you develop the foundation of skill, then they can be developed professionally, the best of the best, by Atlanta United. And sometimes they come later. Sometimes they develop later. Sometimes they weren't seen until later. There's always a story like that. But if you get kids into the academy at an early age, they develop in a professional manner and they understand what it is to play like Atlanta United from 10, 11 years old. And you move forward like that. It's very exciting. That's going to do it. We're not going to go 3 hours. We're going to come in just under that, about 8 minutes under that. But this is what happens sometimes on an overreaction Monday. Jarrett didn't die, so that's good.
Yes.
Woohoo!
Yes. No soccer
Good
over
news
there
for everybody.
tonight. Nick Alifi should be back soon, maybe, possibly. He might not. He might just stay in Italy for the rest of his life.
He might just stay in Italy.
Yeah.
We might never
don't
see him
know.
again. But
Serie A over there on a weekly basis.
when he is back, we will have soccer over there. So no show tonight. Show tomorrow. We got Dylan Butler on with us at 9:30. We will talk a lot about the rest of the league, and I want to hear what Dylan thought about Atlanta, but I want to hear what he thought about the rest of the league as well. Who impressed, who was a concern, all of the storylines. Stay up to date today with what FIFA and UEFA should be doing at some point with announcements about Russia in World Cup qualifying, in the Women's Euros. Those are very possible that they happen really at any time today. So be on the lookout. That's going to do it for us. We'll see you in the morning. Thanks for hanging out for an Overreaction Monday. Mucha plata, y'all.
Much plot,
Mucho plata, y'all.